Chapter 948. The Godii 13 squadrons had a total of 13 squadrons, and the one with the strongest combat power was the 11th Division, and the captain of the 11th Division was an outstanding existence among the captains. This little guy, Uno Hanaretsu's eyes were filled with light as she looked at Dustless with interest. After a while, her eyes dimmed as she did not notice anything different about Dustless. He did not have any ryatsu and looked very ordinary. The only thing that Uno Hanaretsu appreciated was that he was able to remain calm even when facing a ferocious captain like Ghost Yenching. This made Uno Hanaretsu look at him in a new light. The fact that he can become a captain means that his strength has been recognized by the head captain, and the previous captains of the 11th Division are all extremely strong, and they are also the best among the captains. Uno Hanaretsu quietly explained as she looked at first-generation Ghost Chei's elegant scabbard, "You have awakened Zanpakuto, and you still have a long way to go. There is no need for you to throw your life away. Anyone who offends this man's enemy will die in the end." Dustless looked at Uno Hanaretsu suspiciously and asked curiously, "This is our first meeting, why are you telling me this?" Being asked by Dustless, Uno Hanaretsu remained calm and said seriously, "Your body does not have ryatsu, and you are still so calm when facing a captain. If you can survive, I believe that your future will be bright. This way, Soul Society might even have a genius who can stand on the same level as Captain Ikamaru Jin in the future. Thank you for thinking so highly of me, Captain Uno Hua. However, I still want to give it a try." Tactfully rejecting Uno Hua's good intentions, Dustless said resolutely. A faint light flashed in the corner of his eyes. Dustless wanted to provoke this rash green blade 8. Other than purposely splashing dirty water on him, he also wanted to test the captain's strength. Since he was not familiar with this place, he needed to at least find a suitable candidate to understand this world. "Where does this brat get his confidence from?" Uno Hua said in surprise. Cherry's small mouth opened wide, and she was about to try and persuade Cherry when a vigorous voice that was filled with confidence attracted everyone's attention. "Humph." A muffled groan sounded, and the originally warm and cool air became incomparably hot. "Gue Yenching, remember this clearly. You are the captain of Soul Society. Every move you make represents quiet Soul Society. You are not a hooligan who bullies the weak and fears the strong." The head captain reprimanded coldly. His words were merciless. "However, since both sides are willing, let's go with Captain Ghost Yen Chang's suggestion. Remember, don't go too far." The head captain's sunken eyes suddenly widened several times as he spoke in an extremely cold tone. Hee. I couldn't ask for more." The ferocious-looking Ghost Yen Ching laughed loudly. "No problem," Dustless said indifferently as he met the head captain's gaze. In an extremely spacious area, there were dozens of people around. This place was surrounded by mountains on all sides. It was a sealed valley. Other than a few captains, there was no one else. How strange. Why is that old man Yamamoto purposely biased towards me? Staring at Kenpachi Gue Yenching, who was 10 meters in front of him, Dustless's peripheral vision was revolving around old man Yamamoto, who was holding a walking stick and watching from afar. Kenpachi Gue Yenching was a noble Kenpachi, and Dustless was just an ordinary person. The direction of the heavens should be one-sided. However, the head captain was insinuating that he was suppressing Kenpachi Gue Yenching. This in itself did not make sense. This old man. I think he is looking for an opportunity to eliminate Kenpachi Gue Yenching. The confusion in Dustless's heart disappeared, and he vaguely understood the head captain's intention. Later on, Zaraki Kenpachi single-handedly eliminated Kenpachi Gue Yenching, and he naturally became the captain. Zaraki Kenpachi could be said to be old man Yamamoto's disciple who taught him the way of the sword. Boom boom boom. A purple light burst out from the sky. Under the boundless spiritual pressure, the mountains that bordered the area trembled and the particles on the ground trembled slightly. Is this spiritual pressure? Smacking his lips, Dustless's eyes flashed with fascination. The stronger a person's soul was, the stronger their spiritual pressure would be. As the Ten Tails, Dustless did not know how strong his soul was. However, one thing was for sure, it was definitely not weak. Roar, 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 in the sky, the spiritual pressure condensed into a ferocious beast with a mouth full of fangs. Scorching saliva dripped out of its mouth, and it would burn the ground when it touched it. Is this all you've got? Captain Kenpachi Gue Yinching. Staring curiously at the ferocious beast that was condensing spiritual pressure, Dustless asked curiously, I heard that every Kenpachi Gue Yinching's spiritual pressure is one of the best among the captains. Humph, at least you are knowledgeable. This is my strength when I'm at my peak. Just based on the amount of spiritual pressure, I am indeed one of the best in Soul Society. Kenpachi Gue Yenching was extremely pleased with Dustless's flattery. He laughed complacently, and did not care about the disgusted looks from the captains around him. Then, he remembered how Dustless exposed him, and sneered, Don't think that I will forgive you just because you said something nice. No, no. You misunderstood me. Dustless shook his head like a rattle drum, and then said bluntly, The spiritual pressure just now, I thought you were suppressing your strength to the level of a vice captain. I didn't expect it to be your full strength. Chapter 949. These words instantly ignited the powder keg that was Ghost Yenching. Whoosh! An afterimage flashed out, and then Ghost Yenching disappeared like a ghost. Boom, boom, boom. There was a fierce wave of power behind him, and a fist with the weight of Mount Tai came crashing down. Ghost Yenching's face was full of contempt. Dustless was like a statue, standing motionless in the same place, unaware of his existence. He immediately remembered the head captain's warning, and he could not help but lower his strength. If you ignore the head captain's order, you will not be able to bear the consequences. Boom! The air trembled violently, and a visible ripple appeared in the void. Bastard, it hurts. A painful scream came into everyone's ears, and when they looked closely, they saw that Ghost Yenching's huge fist was red and swollen, as if he had hit a meteorite. Not only did he not hurt Dustless, but he himself was in a mess. Even the bones that formed the pinky finger were shattered and annihilated. What's going on? All the captains were shocked. Ghost Yenching's red and swollen fist was obviously not fake, and the problem naturally came from Dustless's body. It seems like he used the hardness of his body to defend, but how can his body be so hard? Her eyes were filled with shock. Unohana Retsu's chest heaved up and down, and her tone was raised a lot. How hard does his body have to be to defend against the head captain's fist with just his body, and even injure the opponent? Unohana Retsu felt that it was unbelievable. This is Ghost Yenching's carelessness, he is always so childish and useless. The head captain looked at Dustless, and then said calmly, It's impossible for a fist as weak as yours to hurt me. Turning around, Dustless said expressionlessly. Even if he was now in a soul state, everything in the past, including armament hockey, observation hockey, devil fruit, and many ninjutsu, he could use them all. Brat, even if you're getting carried away, you should know when to stop. Ghost Yenching's eyes were bloodshot, and then his body's spiritual pressure surged, and the spiritual pressure soared into the sky, and a fatal deterrence followed. His body felt as if it was carrying a mountain that weighed over 1,000 jin. It was difficult for him to even breathe or move an inch. The coarse hand condensed a blazing flame, and the temperature instantly increased by dozens of times. The small fireball in Ghost Yenching's hand also turned into a huge fireball. Dao Breaker 31, Red Cannon. The fireball that Yenching condensed in Saber 8's hand stood out, leaving a crimson afterimage in its wake. The fire was even bigger than Dustless himself. This kind of flame used for illumination, do you think it's really suitable for battle? Helplessly shaking his head, Dustless sighed. He completely ignored the deterrence of the spiritual pressure and unsheathed the first-generation ghost blade. A cold light pierced through the incoming fireball. Poochie! The powerful fireball instantly split into two, passing by Dustless on both sides. This kid is weird, the captain of the 5th Division, Sosuke Aizen, was puzzled. Of course, it was not in terms of strength. Dustless's weak strength was not worth mentioning in his eyes. To Aizen's surprise, Dustless was calm and composed. He was like a veteran who'd been through hundreds of battles and wasn't afraid at all. Bastard! Ghost Yan Chang's eyes emitted a sinister red light. After exchanging 2 blows, Dustless came out unscathed, but his hand was broken. Just the thought of it made him angry and resentful. Even the captains around him were looking at him differently. Contempt and disdain were clearly visible. He was embarrassed by a nobody. Even if his face was as thick as a city wall, he couldn't stand it. Hum hum hum. A sharp, ear-piercing sound of thunder suddenly rang out. They could feel a faint burning pain on their skin. Ghost Yan Chang's Sword 8 had actually condensed a huge lightning bolt in his palm. This blockhead seems to be very familiar with Kido. Dustless was quite surprised. Compared to his successor, Zaraki Kenpachi, this guy was a genius. Zaraki Kenpachi doesn't know Kido. Heido's 63 Thunder Roar Cannon. A straight beam of light whistled, and the deafening roar made people's ears feel stuffy. It left an afterimage in the sky, like a golden spear piercing through the air. This is against the rules, head captain. The captains looked at the head captain in unison. The previous agreement was to maintain the strength of the vice captain. Although the Heido 63 Thunder could be used by the vice captain, Ghost Yan Chang's current strength was far beyond the vice captain's. Rules are dead, people are alive. The rules we set are effective. Hueco Mundo has been peaceful for a long time. Yamamoto's old voice was filled with endless vicissitudes of life. Moreover, judging from Wu Chen's calm and composed performance, their anxiousness was completely superfluous. Strange, what did that kid called Dustless do? A surprised exclamation pulled everyone's thoughts back. Looking up, the golden lightning was burning with dark flames, corroding Ghost Yan Chang's Heido at a speed visible to the naked eye. When it came into contact with Dustless, the power contained in the flash was almost negligible. Not to mention Dustless, even a normal human couldn't hurt it. Huff! A hot breath came out of Dustless's mouth, and the roaring flash disappeared with the wind. Chapter 950. Dustless was hoping that Kenpachi Ghost Yanching would give up, but he did not expect that it would ignite his anger instead. Ah! What an untactful person. Under the unprecedented anger, Ghost Yan Chang's spiritual pressure, which could be said to be limitless, finally stopped holding back. His whole body was like a blazing furnace, trembling with anger. The scorching temperature even wanted to vaporize Dustless's arm. Not only that, even the Lingzi floating in the air started to burn, igniting the surrounding sky in an instant. An angry beast is indeed dangerous, but, speaking of which, is he going to use Bankai? Dustless looked expectantly at Kenpachi Ghost Yanching, who was emitting danger signals all over his body. Instead of being afraid, he was happy. He was very interested in the Shirkai and Bankai of the Shinigami. However, Dustless's hope was destined to fail this time. In some aspects, Kenpachi Ghost Yanching was very similar to his successor, Zaraki Kenpachi. He did not seem to know Shirkai and Bankai. Suddenly, he realized that a cold light was falling from the sky. Dustless subconsciously raised his head, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Intersecting black lights of unknown origin fell from the sky. There were only a few of them, but no one dared to underestimate them. Some of the captains even felt that they were too close, and they all distanced themselves from the center of the area. Ignoring Dustless, who was a little stunned, Kenpachi Ghost Yenching bit his lips and said a few forbidden words. 90 of Breaking Dao. Black Coffin. A few simple words came out from his throat, as if it was filled with endless magic. It supported the power of the black lights, and a dark and horrifying purple light pulsated. Under everyone's observation, the purple light became real. The moment it landed, it turned into a huge black coffin. The attack range was huge, and Dustless was also affected. Puchi. Puchi. In the dark environment, thousands of invisible blades attacked. In just a few seconds, Dustless's body was shredded thousands of times. This kind of boring, useless attack, how long are you going to use it for? A long sigh echoed through the dark space. It was hard to imagine that there were creatures that could survive in such a dense environment. Dustless's body was emitting light, completely ignoring the shadow blades attacking him. Every time his body was damaged, it would be repaired by the glint fruit. This cycle continued endlessly. About a few minutes later, Dustless finally lost his patience as he felt the endless shadowless blades attacking him from all directions. He lifted his right foot off the ground and the whole calf was covered by the golden liquid. Then, he mercilessly kicked the dark coffin wall. Lightspeed kick. The black coffin shook fiercely under the impact, and then there was a vibration of caw caw caw. Irregular cracks spread out. Through the weak gaps, Dustless could see the outside world clearly. Boom boom boom. After struggling for a few seconds, the godlike number 90 Dao breaker collapsed and turned into snow-like fragments. Gulp. Ghost Yenching grunted as his pupils widened. Suddenly, a flash of light shot towards him. Sensing the danger, Ghost Yenching and Saber 8 retreated. Binding path number 61, 6-rod light prison. 6 rays of light attacked from all directions like tracking missiles. Dustless, who was rushing over, was subdued by him. He couldn't move his body and couldn't move at all. Phew! Ghost Yenching heaved a sigh of relief. His entire body felt lighter. However, before he could catch his breath, a cracking sound made his heart jump to his throat. Crack! Without any complicated skills, Dustless took a slight step forward. The 6 light pieces instantly collapsed and disappeared with the wind. Lightspeed kick. The light came straight at him at an extremely fast speed. Ghost Yenching responded immediately, forcibly using the remaining spiritual pressure in his body. A triangular defensive formation faintly flashed. Binding path number 73, mountain toppling crystal. The triangular cone-shaped defensive space was formed. It was airtight, shiny, and looked as hard as diamond. It protected Ghost Yenching, who was hit hard. It collided head-on with the lightspeed kick. Crack crack crack. The huge transparent crystal trembled violently, and thumb-sized cracks appeared. In the end, it couldn't withstand the powerful force and turned into nothingness. Ghost Yenching became a fat lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Boom boom boom. The blue sky was dominated by crimson. A large flaming mushroom cloud floated in the sky for a long time. Below the ground, Ghost Yenching's body was charred. His breath was weak, and he was unconscious. He was barely hanging on to life. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, several figures appeared next to Ghost Yenching without warning. They were all wearing the captain's feather. Looking at the miserable Ghost Yenching, they felt like they were going to get rid of him. Although Ghost Yenching was in the wrong for breaking the agreement, beating him like this was equivalent to slapping Soul Society in the face. Captain Unohana, Yamamoto's old eyes glanced at Unohana Retsu. Yamamoto's decision to hand over the half-dead Ghost Yenching to him was completely his own doing. He couldn't blame anyone else. Unohana Retsu was also an old antique who had lived for thousands of years. She naturally understood the meaning of this shallow sentence. Suddenly, a strange creature floated out from behind her and swallowed Ghost Yenching. At the same time, Dustless was also surrounded by the 2nd Division Xing Jun. He definitely wouldn't choose to be captured. Just as he was about to force his way out, the head captain's words made all the captains, including Dustless himself, confused. Chapter 951. Yamamoto was an old monster who had lived for over 1,000 years. Not only was his strength extraordinary, he was also quite intelligent. He stared at Dustless's skinny body with a sharp glint in his eyes. "Young man, are you interested in joining the Godai 13? All the captains looked at Dustless. Soul Society could not turn a blind eye to such a person. Joining the Godai 13 was a must. If he refused, he would probably be punished by the head captain. Of course. A smile appeared on Dustless's face as he accepted. He indeed needed a suitable identity to end the awkwardness of being a vagabond. That would be for the best. The head captain nodded his head in satisfaction. Soon after, he calmly said, "Which division do you intend to join? Based on your strength, any division is extremely suitable." The old man is really biased. Shunsui stood out and complained, but the head captain glared at him and said, "Based on your strength, this old man suggests you join the 11th division. Hearing this, Dustless rejected old man Yamamoto's suggestion without even thinking. A cunning thought appeared in his mind: "I choose to join the head captain's 1st division." These words caused all the captains to be shocked. This was obviously walking right into the trap. This kid, is this an accident? It doesn't seem like it. Uno Hanaretsu frowned as she looked at Dustless. Her heart was filled with suspicion. She had a feeling that Dustless was taking a step back in order to advance. After working together for over 1,000 years, Uno Hanaretsu understood the head captain's personality. He would not tolerate even the slightest mistake. If Dustless chose to join another division, old man Yamamoto would definitely force Dustless to join the 1st division. Now that Dustless took the initiative to join the 1st division, old man Yamamoto's heart was moved. "This old man appreciates your kindness, but the 1st division is not suitable for you." As expected, just as Uno Hanaretsu thought, old man Yamamoto directly rejected Dustless. He looked deeply at Dustless before finally looking at Shunsui Okatake, and the others. In the end, his gaze landed on Uno Huaretsu. "Captain Uno Flower. Your 4th division doesn't have a suitable vice-captain. Let him be the captain. Although the 4th division is a medical team, it's inevitable that there will be accidents. A strong vice-captain is also needed. This is the most suitable combination." Old man Yamamoto made the final decision, leaving no room for anyone to refute. "Yuan Lu Zhai, that fellow, forget it." Uno Hua Lai shook her head and smiled bitterly. Then, she walked towards Dustless with graceful steps. She politely extended her arms and revealed her snow-white wrists. "Please take care of me in the future, Lord Qin." Uno Hua Lai revealed a gentle smile. It was very charming and made people feel relaxed like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Plans can't keep up with changes. Dustless felt a strange feeling in his heart. He naturally knew what the head captain meant. Rather than saying that he was the vice captain, it was more like having Uno Hua monitor him. After all, Uno Hua was absolutely loyal to the world, and her strength was unquestionable. As the first Sword 8, she could be considered an invincible existence. "Please take care of me, Captain Uno Hua." Dustless politely extended his arm and smiled. The two of them shook hands in a friendly manner under the gaze of all the captains. The soft touch between the 5 fingers made Wuchen's heart flutter and his mind agitated. "Lord Qin." Uno Hua Lai reminded Dustless when she saw that he was distracted. Hearing this, Dustless felt awkward. He instinctively let go of Uno Hua Lai's hand and smiled embarrassedly. He quickly changed the topic and asked in confusion, "Shouldn't the captain of the 4th division be Yuin Toru?" Uno Hualai looked at Dustless in confusion and explained, Yuan is currently only a third seat. With her strength, she's not qualified for the vice-captain position. Dustless's eyes flashed with understanding. He could not help but sigh in his heart. I thought that by showing off a little bit of my strength, I could get a captain to play with. Thinking about the cunning Yamamoto Ryuichugoku, Dustless knew that his plan had failed. Seoul society would not find someone of unknown origin to be a captain. Congratulations, Shunsui and the other captains came to express their gratitude. Dustless also forced a smile and greeted them one by one. He only returned to the 4th Division with Uno Hualai in the evening. Seoul society was very efficient. At the very least, the 4th Division was so. After hearing that there was a new vice-captain, they quickly tidied up a clean courtyard. Although it was not luxurious, it was clean and simple. It was suitable for self-cultivation. Dustless also felt very tired after the fight with Yen Ching and Saber 8 during the day. After taking a casual shower, he was about to go to sleep when the unexpected sound of footsteps chased away his sleepiness and made him full of energy. Something big must have happened for a late-night visit. In the reception hall, Uno Hualai and a graceful woman could be clearly seen. This elegant and mysterious woman was extremely beautiful. She exuded a seductive aura. She had long black hair that was parted to the side. She wore a complicated golden hair ornament and a white cloak with a buckle. Her appearance was beautiful. It's her. After looking at the symbol of the 4th Division behind the mysterious woman and confirming that he did not see wrongly, Dustless's calm eyes rippled. He activated high-density chakra all over his body in case of any accidents. The 0 Division's codename Oishi Mamoru, Shudora Thousand Hands Maru, was definitely not looking for Dustless with good intentions. Chapter 952. This. Which captain is this? She looks unfamiliar. Dustless walked up with a smile on his face as if he had never met her before. She, thinking about Shidoro's sensei identity, Uno Hanaretsu hesitated for a few seconds before smiling. She's a close friend of mine, Shidoro-sensei. She only gave a simple introduction of her name and did not mention anything else. Dustless's eyes widened as he pretended to be surprised. I didn't expect Seoul Society to have other captains other than the Godai 13. His sparkling eyes fell on the graceful Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru. Dustless said meaningfully, the Seoul Society is really a. Why do you have so much to say? Take off your clothes and stop wasting my time. Shoutoro Senju interrupted Dustless as he shouted impatiently. At the same time, the skeletal arm behind him reached out to grab Dustless. He thought he could easily grab Dustless since he was just a rookie vice-captain. However, the reality was the complete opposite. What kind of technique is this? Is it the path of ghosts? It doesn't seem like it. It's more like some unknown mysterious ability. Shoutoro Senju analyzed in surprise. His cold face relaxed as he showed a hint of interest. He thought Dustless was just an ordinary vice-captain, but it seemed like he had some skills. Dustless's body glowed with a warm light as he used elementization to ignore the skeletal arm. You're quite strong to be able to defeat Ghost Yen Ching. Shoutoro Senju's tone was no longer as cold as before. At least, Dustless felt like he was talking to someone. As a death god, you must have the Death Tyrant outfit. When an ordinary person becomes a death god, they will be born with it. However, you are an exception. Take off all of your clothes and let me make it for you. The size must be reasonable and there must not be any mistakes. Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru said seriously. His words revealed a meticulous attitude. You're saying I have to take off all my clothes? Dustless asked suspiciously. Hearing that Shoutoro Senju's tone was not hostile, Dustless relaxed. He looked at Uno Hanaretsu, and she nodded her head in agreement. When helping others to sew up the Death Tyrant's armor, one needed to be of the right size. Ahem. I'm not ready yet. Do you want to come back tomorrow? Looking at the bony arm behind Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru and her fervent gaze, Wu-chan always had a feeling of being treated as a lab rat. She was also a mad scientist, and her level was even higher than that perverted Cocoon Ray. You're a man, why are you being more shy than a woman? Wrinkling her eyebrows, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru unhappily scolded, I don't even care, what do you have to say? Could it be that you are afraid that I will eat you? Hearing Shidoro Senju's words, Dustless's face turned red. He had just taken a shower and was only wearing his pajamas. After being provoked by Shidoro Senju, Dustless directly undid his belt. Ahem ahem ahem, Unohana Retsu's expression changed when she saw this. Looking at the blushing Dustless, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. She never thought that the vice-captain she trusted so much would have such a childish side. There are still some things I need to take care of in the 4th Division. Goodbye. Bowing slightly, Unohana Retsu left with an awkward expression. Really, someone who has lived for thousands of years is still so shy. The future of Seoul society is worrying. Seeing Unohana Retsu running away, Shidoro Senju's body floated up and landed beside Dustless, circling around him. You're Dustless, right? Measuring the length of Dustless's arm, Shidoro Senju's uninterested asked casually. Yes. Dustless answered honestly. At the same time, Shidoro Senju's hands were not idle. His skeletal hands were extremely nimble, sticking close to Dustless's body and carefully measuring his waist, height, and so on. Because he was so close, Dustless could even feel Shidoro Senju's breathing. How torturous. Dustless bitterly smiled. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's, but it still fell into Shidoro Senju's ears. You don't know what's good for you. There are so many people who want me to die, but they don't have the fortune. You don't know how lucky you are. At this moment, 2 tender white arms unexpectedly came out of his sleeves and took off Dustless's pajamas, exposing him completely naked in front of Shidoro Senju's eyes. Seeing this, Dustless's mouth fiercely twitched. He was speechless. Looking up at Shidoro Senju's eyes, he felt relieved. So she has hands too. His line of sight swept past the delicate white wrist of Shuro Senjumaru. Wu-chan was too lazy to think more. Such a person who loved to dress up and loved beauty, she couldn't be so crazy as to cut off her own arm. If it wasn't for this thing down there, people might have thought that you were a woman. Shidoro Senju's perfect and charming face was moved. Dustless's skin was white and tender, as bright as a gem. It was very smooth, even purer than the skin of an ordinary girl. This woman, Dustless directly closed his eyes, suddenly feeling like he was a human specimen. However, the moment he closed his eyes, something unexpected happened. Chapter 953. Some people's intuition is extremely sharp, especially Dustless, who has experienced the slaughter of 2 worlds. Suddenly opening his eyes, what came into his sight was Shidoro Senjumaru's hostility. His whole body was overflowing with ominous aura, and the flowing air around him was strangely shining and jumping. Looking closely, the water in the atmosphere has condensed into ice. In addition, Shidoro Senjumaru's indifferent face was also surrounded by coldness. The measurement of the Death Lord costume is completed. Now let's change the topic. Taking the initiative to distance himself from Dustless, Shidoro Senjumaru said, when you first came to Seoul Society, who caused the huge chaos, not to mention awakening the Zanpakuto, it can fool Yamamoto and the others, but it's useless against me. After saying that, a biting cold murderous aura locked onto Dustless. In a trance, Dustless felt thousands of sharp weapons locked onto him, as if he lied, he would die on the spot. Dustless couldn't deny Shidoro Senjumaru's words. Except for a certain male protagonist in the future, the Zanpakuto of everyone in Soul Society is inextricably linked to the Hyogo Division's first soldier and Naomiya Wangyu in the Spirit King Palace. One of them named everything in Soul Society, including the Zanpakuto, and the other created the original Zanpakuto of every Shinigami, Shane Tatsu. Naturally, he knew that Dustless didn't awaken the Zanpakuto. Yes, then what are you going to do? Arrest me immediately. With his plan exposed, Dustless didn't bother to pretend. His voice returned to its usual laziness, casually put on his pajamas, and then leaned against the wall calmly. His undaunted expression caused Shidoro Senjumaru to roll his eyes. It's not like arresting you, you're at most a person with a little strength of unknown origin. There's Retsu monitoring you. And it's best if you can use your strength to serve Soul Society. Shidoro Senjumaru shook his head and said, and then his tone suddenly changed, revealing a hint of warning and threat. However, if one day you do something bad to the world. It's up to you. Kachi. Dustless picked up a fruit from the fruit platter and started munching on it. After taking a glance at the Shitaluo thousand-hand pill, Dustless completely ignored these words and treated them as nonsense. Rules were meant to be broken, and there was no one who could restrain him. Indeed, I didn't awaken any Zanpakuto, that was just an excuse I came up with to deal with the head captain. Seeing that his lie had been exposed, Dustless was too lazy to continue lying. He patted his chest and swore, but in this life, I will definitely use my life to defend the peace of Soul Society. His resolute voice was sonorous and forceful, causing Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru to be stunned for a moment before he said disdainfully, "This is Soul Society. Even if you want to rebel, you need to have the strength to do so." Dustless shrugged and didn't care about these words. He really didn't plan to destroy Soul Society for the time being. Even if he did, it would be a matter for the future. It wouldn't be too late to wait until he learned the energy of spiritual pressure. In reality, the Calamity invasion wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like this had never happened before. Shinozaki Ichigo and the first Shinigami acting Silver City Kongo could be counted as such to a certain extent. Now that Dustless was the vice captain of the 4th Division, it was equivalent to surrendering to Soul Society in disguise. Shitaluo Thousand-Hand Pill and Division 0 were happy to see this. Since it wasn't you who tore the sky above Soul Society, Shitaluo Thousand-Hand Pill lowered his head and pondered. He was puzzled. Soul Society's sky was inexplicably torn apart by someone, and it was even filled with Greater Void's spiritual pressure. Actually, it's very simple. This sentence attracted Shitaluo Thousand-Hand Pill's attention. He raised his eyebrows slightly and immediately said ungratefully, "Why are you blindly involved? This is none of your business. Also, you're not allowed to tell anyone that you met me today." Remembering Division 0's sensitive identity, Shitaluo Thousand-Hand Pill made 3 rules. I'm the person involved. Glancing at Shitaluo Thousand-Hand Pill, Dustless continued to count. The types of voids can be roughly divided into 3 types. The first type is the top-level voids, the second type is the Ajichas, and the last type is the unenlightened Jillian. At this point, Dustless obviously raised his voice as he recalled the scene when he transmigrated. His eyes shone brightly as he said, "In the torn sky at that time, it was actually filled with the lowest-level greater voids like Jillian. There was no Ajichas or the higher-level Vasto Todd. There were a lot of them, definitely not less than 1,000. Impossible." Shitaluo Thousand-Hand Pill's face changed upon hearing this. The spiritual pressure around his body was extremely dense, like boiling water bubbling. It was extremely terrifying. I've already said it. It's up to you to believe it or not. Sipping his tea, Dustless turned a deaf ear to Shitaluo Thousand-Hand Pill's murderous intent. His words had actually pointed out who the mastermind behind this was. As everyone knew, Jillian belonged to the lower voids and had no intelligence. Although it could use the black cavity to invade the modern world, it was usually ordered by the higher-level judges. Under the situation where there was no one controlling it, Jillian would definitely not invade Soul Society on a large scale, let alone thousands of them. However, there was now a large number of Jillian in Soul Society, but there were no judges or Vastotod-level greater voids controlling it. What did this mean? It indirectly indicated that there was someone secretly supporting Soul Society to pave the way for the greater voids to invade. Chapter 954. So far, the only person who wanted to harm Soul Society was Sosuke Aizen. Although this was just Dustless's baseless conjecture, only Sosuke Aizen and his two lackeys, Yeast Sensei and Jin Ikimara, were capable of mobilizing thousands of Killian and invading Soul Society without anyone noticing. It wasn't difficult for the three captains to mobilize thousands of Minos to invade Soul Society. If Jin and Yeast Sensei were Sosuke Aizen's lackeys, their cooperation would have been flawless. However, even Aizen didn't expect Dustless Sky to suddenly cross over. His precise plan wasn't messed up. Thousands of grand voids were enough to destroy the world, but compared to the system, it was just a drop in the ocean. So the Minos didn't come out alive, and Dustless fell instead. Do you know what you mean by that? Shuro asked with a pale face. A layer of ice covered her face. Sigh. Looking at the murderous Shoutoro thousand-handed Maru, Wu Qin sighed and looked up at the wooden ceiling. I'm just too kind. I obviously know that I'm going to die, but I still chose to tell the truth. Hey! Hearing this, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru's pretty face was filled with astonishment. For thousands of years, this was the first time she met someone who was so shameless. He slandered Yanqing Kenpachi for no reason and even beat him up violently to establish his prestige. Now, he actually shamelessly said that he was kind. This was the first time Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru had met such a person. Are you sure? Remembering Dustless's strength when he defeated Kenpachi Ghost Yanqing, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru could not help but hesitate. He lowered his voice and asked with slight anticipation. What's the benefit of me tricking you? Taking a deep look at Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru, Wuchen didn't answer but asked instead. Shidoro Thousand-Handed Maru nodded thoughtfully. He reluctantly agreed with Wu Chen's words. Everything was about motive. As far as the current situation was concerned, Wu Chen indeed had no benefit in deceiving her. That's all for today. I'll come back for you in the future. After taking a deep look at Wu Chen, Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru floated away, leaving Wu Chen with a view of his back. In the end, he gradually turned into an ink dot and disappeared. I finally got rid of this jinx. Dustless was sleepy, but because of Unohana Retsu and Shuro's invasion, he didn't feel sleepy at all. He strolled around the courtyard in boredom. Looking at the stars in the sky, his mind wandered, thinking about the current situation. I can only wait a while. Even if I kill Kenpachi Ghost now, Yamamoto won't let me take the captain's position. Dustless thought to himself. He had only been in Soul Society for a day, or even less than a day. Yamamoto would never be so absurd as to hand over the 11th division to him. Sosuke Aizen, staring at the bright moon in the sky, Dustless was speechless. Even if he told them the truth, Soul Society would think he was making it up. They might even arrest Dustless as a suspect. Accusing the captain without evidence was not a small crime. Aizen also had two loyal lackeys, Ikimara Jin and Higashi-sensei. They worked together perfectly, and no one could take down Aizen and the others. In the gloomy underground world, there were all kinds of sophisticated instruments monitoring every corner of Soul Society. Even the captain's first division was under the observation of these instruments. Captain Aizen. Should we continue with our plan? In the dark space, a malicious voice sounded, with a hint of schadenfreude. With the help of the fluorescent light on the screen, three figures could be clearly seen walking out of the dark space. Looking closely, it was Sosuke Aizen, his lackeys Tei-sensei and Jin. Of course, how can we stop our plan because of a nobody? That young man called Dustless is far from enough to influence us to give up our plan. Sosuke Aizen's voice was very soft, his expression was gentle, but there was a coldness that penetrated deep into the soul. Just like Dustless said, this man was a poisonous snake hiding in the dark. Aizen-sama. The creation of the Great Void inside Shinozaki Ichigo was about to be completed, but it was destroyed by that kid. Should we? Tei-sensei made a throat-slitting gesture at Sosuke Aizen. Hearing this, Aizen stopped. For the first time in his life, he showed a rare look of confusion. At that time, he was secretly manipulating the Great Void to sneak into Soul Society from the Black Cavity. Who would have thought that the plan would not be able to keep up with the changes? A space-time storm suddenly appeared in the Black Cavity, destroying thousands of Jillians. Only Dustless came out unharmed. Aizen's plan failed on the verge of success. Those Minos voids were actually tools he used to create voids. To create voids, he needed a large number of voids in Shinigami's souls, but they were all destroyed in an instant. Just thinking about it made Aizen angry. Aizen's expression was gloomy. He wasn't happy that things had gotten out of his control. It doesn't matter if we kill him, but we don't need to do it ourselves. Gue Yanqing has a deep grudge with him. We can use him to get rid of that Dustless. Aizen Sokiai said viciously. Chapter 955. Complicated data was displayed in the various sophisticated instruments. It was extremely difficult for ordinary people to understand them, let alone understand them. Captain Aizen, the experiment is at a critical stage, and we don't have many Minos on hand. Shouldn't we go to Hueco Mundo and catch a few? Ikamaru Jin said with a smile. The corners of his mouth were raised high, and his eyes were narrowed into slits. He looked like a cunning fox harboring evil intentions. Indeed. East Deity agreed after hearing this. Forget about going to Hueco Mundo. Although Kyoka Suigetsu's ability is invincible, it doesn't mean it's invincible. If we sneak out of Soul Society, it's hard to avoid exposing ourselves. Just like today, there's no need to do it personally. We can just catch a few to test, and we can also injure the Shinigami. It's the best of both worlds. Aizen touched his glasses and said expressionlessly. There was no doubt that once the Minos successfully invaded Soul Society, they would wreak havoc, and there would be endless casualties. However, this had nothing to do with Sosuke Aizen. He wanted to be on the same level as the gods, and even become a god. The life and death of mortals was nothing to him. The next morning, the sun was bright and there were no clouds in the sky. Dustless came to the 4th Division early after a good night's sleep. He thought there was a mission, but when he arrived, he was shocked. A large number of members were bored and gathered together to sketch and draw. They were having a lot of fun, and some were even arranging flowers. If I stay with you guys every day, when will I be able to leave the 4th Division? Wu Chen muttered to himself. His heart, which was surging with passion, fell from the clouds to the bottom and shattered all over the ground. While he was distracted, a beautiful figure appeared in his eyes and pulled Dustless back to reality. What did Senjumaru say to you yesterday? You're so distracted, Chen-kun. A soft voice entered his ears. Uno Hanaretsu walked over with a smile. She had an amiable temperament, and the first impression she gave was that she was very friendly and approachable. Following behind her was Kazuto Toru, who was currently in the 3rd Division. She was the future 4th Division vice-captain, but because of Dustless's strong interference, her position was temporarily taken. Nothing much. We just chatted for a bit and asked about what happened that day. Dustless said with a smile. Uno Hanaretsu's expression showed that she did not know anything, which meant that Shudora Thousand-Hand Maru had been very tight-lipped about their conversation yesterday. It's that simple. Ripples appeared in Anohua's watery eyes as she asked doubtfully. This is definitely the truth. How would I dare to lie to Captain Uno Flower? Dustless guaranteed, his face not turning red at all. The doubt in Anohua's eyes disappeared, and she reluctantly accepted Dustless's explanation. She then looked at the disappointed Dustless and said, "This is the situation of the 4th Division. Everyone spends their days cultivating their minds. Only when war breaks out can the 4th Division truly shine. Letting an ambitious person like you stay in the 4th Division is indeed a bit of a waste of talent." Uno Hua said sympathetically. Even if Dustless hit it well, she could still see the burning flames in the depths of his eyes. After living for more than 1,000 years, her experience was dozens of times greater than Dustless's. It doesn't matter. A person's life is always full of twists and turns. Let nature take its course. Moreover, it's not as if I have nothing to do. I still have a lot of things to ask Captain Uno Hua. Dustless said with relief. He still had not figured out the origin of spiritual pressure, so he could use this time to ask Uno Hua about it. However, everything was just as Dustless had said. A person's life was full of unknowns and hard to predict. Just as he became indifferent to his desire to become a captain, the heavens gave him face. Caw caw caw. The sky above the 4th Division suddenly exploded, revealing a long and narrow hole that was clearly connected to another world. From time to time, the roars of wild beasts could be heard. Of course, along with the roars came a wave of spiritual pressure, and a large number of huge figures walked out from the hole. The figures covered the sky and blocked the sunlight. The entire 4th Division's building was dark and filled with despair. What is this? The members of the 4th Division hurriedly walked out of the building and looked up at the endless Minos walking out of the black hole. Their faces were filled with fear, and some of them even felt their legs go soft. The 4th Division belonged to the medical division, and their combat power was their biggest weakness. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several Minos opened their mouths and spat out dangerous red light, which condensed into a huge red sphere. The blood-red light emitted a dangerous wave. Void flash. Uno Hua, who had rushed out with Dustless, was shocked. She gathered a high density of spiritual pressure in her palm and was about to use Hado to destroy the sphere when the sky was filled with flashes of light. Yasekani no Magatama. The dazzling flashes of light whizzed out, and Jillian, who was more than 10 meters tall and was not good at moving, became the perfect target. Roar roar roar, the surrounding Minos cried out in pain. Their bodies were mercilessly pierced through, and there were dozens of holes. Just one wave of attack was enough to take away a whole group of Jillian. How did these Minos invade Soul Society? Uno Hua said with an ugly expression. Compared to that, I'm more curious. When did Jillian become so smart? Dustless sharply sensed that something was wrong and asked Uno Hua, the 4th Division is a medical team. Their combat power is weak, but they are the medical protection of the Grim Reaper. These brainless Jillian chose to attack the 4th Division first. They are too smart. Chapter 956. Dustless was not the only one who was confused. Even Uno Hua Lai was confused. After a while, a cold light flashed through her eyes. Uno Hua Lai was a meticulous person. After hearing Dustless's hint, she immediately understood what he meant. I hope that Jillian's arrival in the 4th Division is just a coincidence. Looking at Jillian who kept coming out of the black hole, Uno Hua Lai prayed in her heart. Roar, the entire Soul Society was filled with the roars of great voids. It was not only limited to the 4th Division. The entire Soul Society was buried by the Great Void's attacks. Rice Bucket, what are you useless people doing? A bunch of Great Voids invaded Soul Society, and you guys didn't even know about it. How am I going to explain this to the head captain? You bastards are only fit to be experiment subjects. Mayuri Lai's furious roar came from the 12th Division. Through the surveillance screen, he could clearly see the sorry state of Soul Society. As if they had agreed beforehand, the great voids came from all directions, from all kinds of tricky and unexpected corners, wantonly destroying Soul Society. Mayuri Lai almost vomited blood when he saw this. His body turned cold. With such a huge mess, he would definitely not have a good time with the head captain. Shinra Tensei. The corner of his clothes suddenly bulged. A repulsive force broke out of his body, forming a perfect 360-degree defense. Bang! The red void disappeared. It was repelled by the repulsive force from Dustless's body. An explosion occurred in the distant horizon, and a blazing fire engulfed everything. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, immediately after, the first-generation ghost blade came out of its scabbard. With a wave of his hand, a huge red slash appeared, creating ripples in the air. Poochie! The dumb Jillian did not even think of dodging this skill. His mountain-like body was instantly penetrated by the red light and split into two. There are so many of them, Dustless's line of sight was locked within 1,000 meters. To his astonishment, he discovered that there were more than 1,000 great voids wandering around Soul Society. If one didn't know better, they might even think that this was Hushu Ring. Dustless chuckled in his heart. His dispirited mood was swept away. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him to make a name for himself. If he could show off a little of his strength, he might be able to replace any captain that was killed in the future. It's time to retreat, Lord Qin. Just as he was lost in his thoughts, Uno Hua Lai's serious voice sounded. A black butterfly suddenly appeared in her hand. Dustless knew that this was the hell butterfly that Soul Society used to communicate with each other. Most of the members of the 4th Division are in hiding, so there's no need to worry. Head Captain, inform all division captains and vice captains to head to the 1st Division for an emergency meeting. With that, Uno Hana Lai used transient step to leave, leaving behind several afterimages in the air. Dustless furrowed his brows when he heard this. Soon after, he followed Uno Huaretsu and left. With so many Jillians, it would be impossible to kill them all in a short amount of time. The atmosphere in the 1st Division's building was extremely tense. In the spacious hall, the captains were divided into 2 rows and stood in an orderly manner, their expressions meticulous. Behind them were Dustless and the other vice captains. The scene was abnormally solemn and heavy, and even the usually sloppy Jingle Chunchuwei had a serious expression on his face right now. The head captain, Old Man Yamamoto, was not as kind as before. His sunken eyes were bulging, and his eyes were bloodshot. Even though the head captain tried his best to remain calm, his body was still slightly trembling. The walking stick in his hand was also slightly trembling. The Ryujin Jaka hidden within it also sensed Old Man Yamamoto's anger and let out a clear cry. The atmosphere was even more terrifying. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. They were afraid that the strongest death god would not be able to suppress the flames and would kill them all in one fell swoop. This is probably the first time in 1,000 years that this old man is so angry. Dustless, who was standing behind Uno Hana Lai, thought. He could even see the veins on Old Man Yamamoto's forehead bulging. It was obvious that he was about to go berserk. It's most likely related to this old man. He's always happy to see things that are not good for Soul Society. Dustless muttered to himself as he looked at Aizen. Even though it was just an unfounded guess, he was sure that the mastermind behind this was Aizen Sosuke. The king of Hueco Mundo, Bailigan. He was Vasto Lord, a predator at the top of the pyramid. However, he still had self-awareness. He knew the consequences of attacking Soul Society rashly. He didn't have the courage to confront the head captain. Vasto Lord could crush captains, but he was only an ordinary captain. Even the heaven-defying Vasto Lord was at the end of his rope. Captain Yer, after a moment of silence, the head captain's gaze finally fell on Mayuri. Mayuri was quite funny. He was afraid that the head captain would see him, so he retreated as far as possible. He even stayed at the same level as Dushless and the other vice-captains. But even so, he couldn't escape old man Yamamoto's eyes. Head captain. Mayuri's face was ugly as he walked out of the line. He looked miserable as if his parents had died. Dustless couldn't help but laugh when he saw that look of regret on his face. Chapter 957. The mission of the 12th Division was to develop items suitable for Shinigami and monitor Soul Society, including the movements of the main world and Hueco Mundo. I will listen to your explanation, but the most important thing now is to expel the Minos. Pang pang. At the end of his sentence, the captain knocked the ground with his cane. The 1st Division was silent, only Mayuri was embarrassed. No one cared about him. The whole world seemed to have abandoned Mayuri. His negligence caused Soul Society to be breached, and some divisions suffered heavy losses. The Minos in Soul Society are like turtles in a jar, there is no need to care about them. Just temporarily seal the Black Chamber where they invaded and terminate the connection between Soul Society and Hueco Mundo. A gentle, steady, wise, and far-sighted voice resounded. Wuchen noticed that the unexpected voice was quite familiar. He immediately looked for the source of the voice. Captain Mayuri is innocent. Hueco Mundo invaded Soul Society for the first time in hundreds of years, and Hueco Mundo is Baelgang's territory. Soul Society can't monitor it. The one who stood up for Mayuri was the captain of the 5th Division, Sosuke Aizen. This old man is shameless. He's the one behind all this, and Aizen is the one who took advantage of Mayuri. Now he's standing up for that old pervert. Dustless thought to himself. He thought he was shameless enough, but compared to Aizen, he paled in comparison. Captain Aizen is right. The 12th Division's ability is limited. Although we are suspected of negligence, we can't reach Hueco Mundo. East Sensei followed. We should immediately send troops to attack Hueco Mundo. Ikemara Jin said. Although he wasn't helping Aizen, he was helping Mayuri escape. After Aizen said this, Yukitake Jushiro also agreed. Shunsui Kyokuro was his friend, so he also supported him. Sajin, who had a good relationship with East Sensei, also nodded. Mayuri looked at Aizen gratefully. Aizen and his lackeys have already become friends with so many people. Lin Yun sighed. Dustless was speechless. Aizen's words were meant to help Cocoon escape, but he had the support of 7 or 8 captains. It wasn't unreasonable for him to be able to control Soul Society in the future. Now, this was a disguised form of roping in Nirvana Cocoon. No wonder he would be able to do well in Soul Society in the future. Then let's do as Captain Aizen said, temporarily seal the entrance of Soul Society. Yamamoto made the decision after some contemplation. The acting of these 3 in collusion is worthy of the title of Best Actor, Dustless sighed in his heart. He was too lazy to meddle in other people's business. He was just an ordinary vice-captain now. The number of deaths in Soul Society had nothing to do with him. The 80th district of Soul Society's Drifting Soul Street was originally a remote area, and it was usually a place where villains gathered, so very few death gods paid attention to this area. Therefore, it was the only place for the Great Void to invade. From a long and narrow crack in the void, groups of Jillian walked out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a while, many figures suddenly appeared on the open ground that was covered in blood and flesh. Can they do it? Wuchen said doubtfully as he looked at the Death God Ghost Sect members who were preparing for the battle. He felt that this group of fat, big-eared, and strangely dressed Ghost Sect members were not reliable. No problem, the Keto are good at sealing enchantments. If they can't do it, then our group of medics and combatants can't do it either. Fuchsia, who was temporarily in charge of the third seat, said confidently, "Maybe we can't deal with the great void above Adjuches, but dealing with Jillian is no problem." Dustless didn't say anything more and stood still like a statue. After a while, the Ghost Path sect members who had finished their preparations finally took action. They all used instant steps to rush towards the sky. After clearing out Jillian in the long and narrow black cavity in a short period of time, a transparent golden membrane covered it, repairing the broken sky at a speed visible to the naked eye. "It's finally over." Fuchsia breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Just when everyone thought it was over, a dazzling light suddenly flashed in the black hole that was about to close, and a sharp sound like lightning pierced their ears. It blasted towards the transparent golden membrane. Boom boom boom. An earth-shattering explosion soared into the sky. The seemingly sturdy film was easily torn apart like paper scraps. The ghost Taoists who did not manage to escape in time were vaporized by this merciless flash. They were wiped out, and not even their bones were left. The destructive Ryatsu fluctuations shocked the entire Soul Society, and all the captains exclaimed. They encountered a great void. "This guy is..." A white figure walked out of the shattered black hole. Dustless looked up, and the great void in front of him was unexpectedly familiar. Did Aizen unify Hueco Mundo now? Looking at the great void overlooking Soul Society in the black hole, Dustless frowned and said. Under the perception of observation hockey, there seemed to be more than one great void in this black hole. The Ryatsu fluctuations were also different, and several of them were mid-level great voids at the Adjuches level. After careful observation, he was surprised to find that among them, there was Vastolord whose Ryatsu density was much higher than Adjuches. Chapter 958. The black cavity that was gradually healing was shattered into pieces by the void flash, revealing a bigger black hole. A shiny gold upstart walked out from it. His whole body was cold and shiny. Especially under the sunlight, his whole body was extremely dazzling. Looking closely, it turned out that there were countless diamond rings on his fingers. The king of Hueco Mundo, Baligan Ruesan Gang. Looking at Baligan, Dustless was somewhat surprised. It was not because he was afraid of his title as the king of Hueco Mundo, or because he was the top grand void of Vastolord, but because he was not afraid of death and his spiritual thunder hit Dustless. Looking up at the sky, looking at Baligan who was standing in the sky, this old man was not afraid at all. It seemed like he wanted to fight with the head captain alone. "Ants, who allowed you to look at me? Go to hell and repent." Lowering his head to look at the group of reapers on the ground, Baligan condensed an extremely dense black sphere at his fingertips. Due to the terrifying power, the void around the void flash was faintly distorted. "Go to hell." The demonic black luster tilted down and blasted towards the ground mercilessly. Boom! 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 The earth-shattering explosion swept across, mercilessly destroying Soul Society. The 80th district of Luhan Street was wiped out in an instant. The bottomless pit on the ground was particularly eye-catching, and the affected mountains were forcibly flattened. "A bunch of ants, you don't cooperate with this old man to fight." Smacking his big mouth full of fangs, Baligan said very disdainfully. The captain level was not enough in his eyes, let alone a group of unknown reapers. Whoosh! On the ground burning with black smoke, a golden light suddenly appeared. The light spread rapidly and evaporated the black smoke in an instant. "What the hell is this?" "It didn't die." Baligan's smug face drooped, and his tone was filled with uncertainty. Vastolord's void flash, not to mention these cannon fodder death gods, even the captain would lose a layer of skin if they were hit. The slightest carelessness would cause them to fall. And the reapers below were intact, supported and protected by a huge golden barrier. Whoosh! 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 A straight beam of light shot into the sky, and the sky seemed to have been shattered by a divine sword, leaving behind afterimages that would never dissipate. Then, an indifferent and emotionless voice lingered in Bailey's ears, lingering in the void for a long time without dissipating. "It's just like what you said earlier. You're not worthy to fight with me. So, go repent and atone for your sins in hell." Bailey was stunned and suddenly felt that his body had become much heavier. He raised his head and the scene that greeted him left him dumbfounded. Dustless was standing on the crown and talking to him in a tone that sounded like he was looking down on an ant. "Bastard, you dare to step on my head. You are courting death." Bailigan, the king of Hueco Mundo, was infuriated. His trembling voice was full of shock and hatred, as dangerous as a barrel of gunpowder that was about to explode. Full of killing intent, the rapidly corroding black spiritual pressure broke out of his body. It was as passionate as the waves of a river, stirring up the flames of Bailgang. Death's breath. The corrosive aura of aging surged into the sky, carrying with it Bailgan's anger. It sprayed towards Dustless, who was stepping on his head, wanting to erase his entire person. Naive, seeing this, Dustless's eyes were calm and indifferent, allowing the black aura of aging to wrap around him. "Humph, you dare to step on my head, this is your end." Bailigan laughed coldly, revealing a touch of satisfaction in his words. Looking up, Dustless's entire person was destroyed by the aura of aging. This was an invincible ability. No creature in this world could survive being wrapped by it. Vice Captain, he, staring at Dustless, who was swallowed by layers of black smoke in the sky, Brave Hush was shocked, her eyes were filled with despair. Not only her, but the Grim Reapers also had the same expression. Bailigan, the king of Hueco Mundo, was known for his ferocity in Soul Society. "Vice Captain Dustless is very strong, there's no need to worry." Brave Hush comforted herself, remembering that Dustless defeated the 11th Division's captain, Ghost Yenching, Kenpachi, and suddenly said with confidence, "He'll be safe." Laughable, ignorant, safe and sound. "You want me to be safe under my hands? Who do you think I am? I'm the king of Hueco Mundo, Bailigan Ruisan Gang." Even though Brave Tiger's voice was as soft as a mosquito, it was still heard by Bailey. He immediately snorted disdainfully and opened his mouth. Just as he was about to use his mouth to teach this god of death who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson, a burst of eternal ridicule came from within the black smoke of despair. "Bailigan. Who do you think you are, always thinking that you're special, an omnipotent existence? This iron law may prevail in Hueco Mundo. But from the beginning to the end, you've got one thing wrong. This is Soul Society, not your Hueco Mundo." In the extremely corrosive power of aging, a ripple visible to the naked eye suddenly came out. Shinra Tensei. As the voice fell, the power of aging surrounding Dustless suddenly disappeared, and was easily bounced away by the repulsive force, revealing a handsome young man. Of course, there was also the flash of light that had been condensing at the bottom of his feet for a long time. Intact. "Bastard. Are you kidding me? Could it be that you're transparent and can ignore the aura of aging?" The shocked Bailigan roared in disbelief, and his tone had a hint of sharpness similar to the roar of steel. "Transparent? You're quite smart. In a sense, I'm indeed a transparent person, but to put it more technically, I'm a shining person. This kind of thing certainly won't work on me." Dustless replied indifferently, and immediately his body flashed with light, and swept to Bailgan's side at the speed of light. The flash of light condensed at the bottom of his feet fell heavily on Bailgan's head. Lightspeed kick. Chapter 959. The benefits of killing Bailigan were self-evident. Not only would his status in Soul Society rise, but it would also destroy Aizen's plan to rule Hueco Mundo. In fact, Aizen relied on Bailigan to control Hueco Mundo. Later, Hueco Mundo became Aizen's base camp. Dustless's purpose in coming to this world was very simple. He wanted to replace Soul King and become the new master of the three realms. Aizen naturally had the same plan, but Dustless couldn't let him do as he wished. Now was a golden opportunity to weaken him. Dustless wouldn't let it go. Death's breath. Hollow's probing nerves were abnormally sharp. Sensing an unprecedented danger, Balegan did not hesitate to use his best move. Not only could the aging gas attack, but it also had a perfect defense. It could corrode almost any attack. This was his trump card against Dustless. Or rather, it was his only trump card. Your attacks are useless against this old man. Balegan looked at the black gas raging all over his body. It seemed like it could corrode even space and time. He sighed in relief. His self-esteem recovered a lot. You're really stupid. Dustless looked at Balegan with pity. Then, he suddenly raised his right hand. A pitch-black hole appeared in his palm, and a strong gravitational force erupted. Wanxiang Heaven's Pole. Balegan's body that was standing upright in the sky immediately began to sway uncontrollably. Even though he tried his best to control the shaking of his body, he still flew towards Dustless uncontrollably. Boy, you're courting death. Balegan roared loudly. He was so angry that he laughed. The fangs on his huge head were wide open. He wanted to swallow Dustless alive. An even more dense aging aura erupted from his body. He wanted to completely annihilate Dustless. Before Dustless appeared, Balegan's #1 enemy was Sosuke Aizen. But now, Dustless left a footprint on his head that would never disappear. This glorious #1 enemy was replaced by Dustless. Even Balegan, who was on the rage index, wanted nothing more than to perish together with Dustless to vent the hatred in his heart. Idiot, you want to touch my body. Not to mention you, even your master can't touch my body with pure physical attacks. Dustless shook his head. Balegan was attacked by the gravitational force of the 10,000 Mammoth Heaven summoning. He did not dodge because there was no need to. Elemental transformation was almost immune to all physical attacks in this world. The moment Balegan touched Dustless, a majestic repulsive force erupted from his body. He smiled slyly. Shinra Tensei. Balegan's face was full of hope. He thought that he could destroy Dustless, but he didn't expect that the violent repulsive force would suddenly hit him and shatter his dream. Even his aging aura was bounced away, teasing the king of Hueco Mundo like a monkey. This dramatic scene encouraged the Shinigami who were trapped in a bitter battle. They gritted their teeth and fought desperately with the Minos voids. For a time, the Shinigami on the battlefield was in a state of defeat. It was strangely one-sided. The Shinigami captains who were rushing over from afar also widened their eyes when they saw this scene. When did the king of Hueco Mundo become so weak? That damned bastard. One day, I'll definitely kill him and avenge my humiliation. Kenpachi Ghost Yen Qing, who used Shuimpa to rush over, had a green face. He held his Zanpakuto tightly, and the muscles on his face were swaying, dazzling people. Originally, when he noticed a huge Ryatsu here, his first thought was to come and destroy the Minos voids and wash away the shame of being defeated by Dustless. Now, he never thought that he would become the best audience to witness Dustless's strength. He felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. This kid. It seems like he didn't use his full strength that day. Unohana Retsu also put away her Zanpakuto. Her beautiful eyes were filled with light, and her calm heart was swallowed by the storm. At this moment, the ones who were the most upset were Sosuke Aizen and the others. Useless trash, he couldn't even fight back against a vice-captain. It's a miracle that he has been the king of Hueco Mundo for hundreds of years. Tozai wanted to curse, but Dustless sucked Balegan over and then bounced him away with a repulsive force. Such a funny scene was seen by Aizen, Tozai, and Ikimara Jin, who were rushing over, and they were angry. It's not that Balegan is useless. He is the famous Vastolord. Ikamaru Jin was not the same as before. Although his face was still very sly and frivolous, his tone was obviously filled with caution. Vastolord was played like a monkey. Ikamaru Jin suddenly felt that his brain was not enough, and his view of the world was turned upside down in an instant. Indeed, it's not that Balegan is weak, it's that his enemy is not in the same dimension as him. Aizen agreed with Ikamaru Jin. Vastolord's strength was well known, but the enemy was too strong. The situation this time is really bad. Aizen's expression was very gloomy. His eyes kept twitching as he looked at Yamamoto, Uno Hanaretsu, and Shunsui Kiraku rushing over. This was the first time in his life that he had this strange feeling. Balegan was currently Sosuke Aizen's most important chess piece, and he was also using him to control Hueco Mundo. But it was easier said than done to let Balegan go. Even Aizen, who had been calm for 100 years, couldn't help but burst into flames. He looked at Dushless with a murderous look in his eyes. Aizen's face hurt. Unknowingly, he felt like he had been slapped by Dushless. However, he couldn't say anything. Both of his plans had been ruined by this brat. Chapter 960. Balegan was shocked. He looked around with his skull but didn't find any trace of the Great Void. He looked at Aizen Sosuke, but the hidden big boss ignored him directly. This is the end of the surprise attack on Soul Society's ninjas. Looking around at the group of captains who were rushing over, Balegan's bones turned black. Before he left, he glared fiercely at Dushless and quietly said, "Just wait and see." Snap! With a snap of his fingers, the void behind Balegan suddenly burst open, and a long and narrow dark hole appeared, and an ancient aura of decay and a strong murderous intent came from it. There was no need to think, the other side was undoubtedly Hueco Mundo. Want to run? You want to run away in front of so many people? What do you think Soul Society is? The sky instantly turned bright red, burning with blazing flames. In the distance, a huge fire tornado swept over. The head captain was like a god of fire, stepping on the flames as he rushed over. Matsumoto! The tornado-shaped hot flames fell from the sky, covering Balegan's entire body, blocking his way and limiting his range of movement to a narrow flame. Fortunately, this is Soul Society. If it was in Hueco Mundo, Yamamoto would have no scruples, and it would be difficult for him to escape death. Balegan, who was surrounded by flames, was calm, and his whole body erupted with aging aura, corroding the flames at a speed visible to the naked eye. The power of Ryujin Jakka was extremely powerful, terrifying enough to destroy Soul Society, but the only disadvantage was that it was too powerful, and it didn't distinguish between friend and foe. Some of the most basic moves could also severely damage Soul Society. Generally, when the captain used Ryujin Jakka, he was forced to use it, or he suppressed the power to the lowest level. If it was in Hueco Mundo, maybe the furious captain would have already killed Balegan. Hee. Goodbye, death gods of Soul Society, I will be back in the future. Balegan, who had escaped from the prison, roared at the top of his lungs, and the black hole behind him connected to Hueco Mundo opened, and half of his foot stepped into it. Bastard, how dare you! Yamamoto's arm holding Ryujin Jakka trembled, and he couldn't wait to burst out with all his strength and kill Balegan instantly. Of course, the consequence of doing so is that part of Soul Society may be buried with him. Looks like he escaped. Sosuke Aizen, who had just arrived, breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the black hole that was gradually closing, his tense heart calmed down, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. Balegan was his most important chess piece, and it was related to the layout of Hueco Mundo. He could not afford to lose him. Aizen, who was bored, glanced left and right, inadvertently glanced at Dustless's smirk. His heart skipped a beat as he had a bad feeling. Brat, you want to capture me alive. Unless you can also activate black cavity. But what a pity. This skill is unique to voids. Just open your eyes and watch me leave. You are just so weak and weak. Kha. Balegan laughed unscrupulously, as if only this could dispel the depression in his heart. He touched the top of his head gloomily, and a footprint that would never disappear made him vomit blood. I will definitely settle this debt with you in the future. Balegan's nondescript voice was filled with the madness of perishing together. The captains all looked at the skull that was pierced through by the footprint. The mark was almost exactly the same as Dustless's right foot, and they all smiled. In the future. Let's end it now. Dustless said lazily. Balegan sneered, and when he was about to mock Dustless, the world in front of him became completely dark, and the connection to the outside world was cut off. The black cavity was completely closed. Damn brat. Ha! What is going on? The black cavity was closed, and Balegan was about to curse Dustless, but the void was distorted like a whirlpool, and the space was torn apart by some invisible force. Balegan instinctively felt something was wrong, and when he was about to turn around and enter Hueco Mundo, a powerful shout ignored the existence of the dimensional barrier and crossed the layers of space into Balegan's ears. Kamui. There was a warm light behind him, and the incomparably dark deep space was instantly bright and warm. Balegan could even breathe the fresh air of Soul Society. He turned his head stiffly like a machine, and looked at the smiling Dustless. Balegan's mouth full of fangs formed an O shape, tearing the space, creating a space-time resonance. This is one of the abilities of my Zanpakuto. Without waiting for anyone to ask, Dustless sealed their mouths with a sentence. The only people who knew that Dustless didn't have a Zanpakuto were the Zero Squad in the Spirit King Palace. This casual sentence directly petrified Balegan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. An afterimage rushed out at the speed of light, and even Dustless could see a vague outline. Boom! A merciless heavy kick landed, and Balegan was kicked out of the torn space. His spiritual pressure erupted, and he was about to fight with all his might, but the captain surrounded him. The initiator was the captain of the second squad, Soi Fong. Clang clang clang. More than a dozen swords were drawn, and the captains pulled out their swords at the same time, staring at Balegan with unfriendly eyes. Soul Society was attacked by Hueco Mundo and suffered heavy losses. This king of Hueco Mundo was the culprit. Just when everyone was about to gang up on Balegan, a figure resolutely blocked in front of Balegan. It's him. What does this guy want? Frowning, Dustless began to guess the purpose of the person in front of him. Chapter 961. The person who stood up for Balegan was the current 5th Division captain, Sosuke Aizen. Dustless laughed inwardly. He had already guessed Aizen's intentions. He quickly came up with a plan. Captain Aizen, Balegan is an enemy who wants to destroy Soul Society. It's not right for you to speak up for him. Or perhaps, you were the one behind Hueco Mundo's perfect invasion. Aizen Sosuke's eyes twitched when he heard this. He almost couldn't help but raise his sword to chop this bastard who deliberately attacked him. Especially since he had exposed him in front of so many captains. After hearing Dustless's words, all the captains looked at Sosuke Aizen suspiciously. This guy suddenly stood in front of Balegan. It would be strange if they didn't suspect him. Vice Captain Dustless, don't speculate. Captain Aizen's loyalty to Soul Society is clear as day. Dongseng scolded angrily. Also, you're just a vice-captain. How dare you criticize the captain? Who gave you the guts? Did someone order you to do this? Everyone knew how to use dirty words. Dongseng was no exception. Idiot. Sosuke Aizen was expressionless, but he was cursing in his heart. Dongseng's words were pointing at Uno Hanaretsu. Over the past 1,000 years, Guno Hualai's loyalty to Soul Society was well known. Sure enough, just as Aizen expected, Anohana's calm eyes rippled with displeasure. Her lips trembled slightly. Just as she was about to speak, someone else took Anohana's place to teach Dongseng a lesson. Captain Dongseng, please pay attention to your words and your status. I don't want to hear such childish words a second time. Yamamoto's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Unohana Retsu had fought with him for 1,000 years. Her loyalty to Soul Society was unquestionable. I'm sorry, Captain Unohana. I misspoke, Sir Head Captain. Realizing that something was wrong, each deity hurriedly apologized humbly. Deputy Captain Wu Qin, this is not a place where a deputy captain like you can meddle in. Seeing that his good friend was being reprimanded, Xiao Xiuan's Wuzhen immediately stood up and pointed the spearhead at Wu Qin. No wonder this big idiot was used. Dustless glanced at Sakumura with pity, but he was too lazy to pay attention to him. He looked straight at Aizen Sosuke. This guy was inexplicably covering up for Bailey, so he was definitely up to no good. Chinkuen is right. Captain Aizen should give a reasonable explanation. Unohana Retsu smiled and supported Dustless. Of course. I will give you a reasonable explanation. Aizen replied calmly. After organizing his words, he continued, as you all know, Beigen is the king of Hueco Mundo. Imprisoning him is far more valuable than killing him. Aizen raised his eyebrows and continued, even if we kill Beigen, Hueco Mundo will give birth to another king. Why don't we just control him and use him? The king of Hueco Mundo will give him face. Hee. I agree. I need a greater void to conduct experiments. It's not convenient to enter Hueco Mundo. With the king of Hueco Mundo's help, it'll be much easier to capture experimental materials. Mayuri laughed. I don't agree. Someone suddenly said. Dustless opened his mouth and organized his thoughts to attack Aizen. However, someone had stolen his script, and it was someone he never expected. Captain Withered, what do you think is inappropriate? Aizen didn't get angry. He always had a nice face. This had become a habit of his. No matter who or what he faced, he always had a smile on his face. Wu Qin looked at Shimubaya in surprise. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth and continued to close his eyes calmly. We're Shinigami, and he's the king of Hueco Mundo. That's all. Byakuya said briefly, as if every word was valuable. He didn't want to say more. I also agree with Captain Shiomu's point of view. With the powerful Vasto Lord in Soul Society, even if Captain Nya can develop a tool to limit Bailey's spiritual pressure, I don't think it's safe. This is a blasphemy to the death gods who died in Hueco Mundo. Unohana raised her voice and wrinkled her nose. She was very dissatisfied with Aizen's suggestion. This old guy is just stalling for time. When the time is right, he'll probably let Beigen go. Dustless looked at Aizen from the corner of his eyes. He understood Aizen's intentions. Aizen needed to use his identity as the king of Hueco Mundo to manage Hueco Mundo, so he couldn't afford to lose him. He couldn't go to Hueco Mundo to be the king. He didn't have the time, and he didn't have the conditions. He might be able to in the future, but not now. You want to protect Beigen. Stop dreaming, silly child. No matter how hard you try, he'll die, and he'll die in front of you. Dustless sneered in his heart. Yamamoto also had a headache. The captains were clearly divided into two factions. He didn't know which side they supported. How about this? Sosuke Aizen's tone was filled with absolute rationality, making people involuntarily believe him, but when it fell on Dustless's ears, it was very strange, with a hint of conspiracy. How about we let the Central 46 sages decide? Chapter 962. Central Room 46 was the organization with the highest authority in Soul Society. Even the Godii 13 had to obey their orders. No one could go against their will. This guy. Could it be that he's already taken out Central Room 46 and is using his mirror's image ability to confuse the captains? Seeing Eisen so confident, Dustless guessed. Then he said to himself, unfortunately, it's useless. No matter how hard you try, it's futile. That old man Balegan will die. Dustless didn't care. He was determined to kill Balegan, and there was no way he was going to let him go. He turned his head and avoided everyone's gaze, and his eyes began to change. His left eye was purple, and there were 9 mysterious tomo in it. It was Rinnegan. Will Grave, Border Prison. In the invisible world, a shadow that looked exactly like Dustless walked out and walked in front of Balegan. No one could detect his presence. In order to ensure that everything went smoothly and he could kill Balegan without leaving a single trace behind, the shadow still held a pitch-black iron rod in his hand. It was condensed from the yin-yang escape. In that case, we will let Central Room 46 make the decision. Yamamoto waved his hand. Hearing this, Eisen bowed and thanked Yamamoto. He then asked Byakuya, Captain Byakuya, what do you think? Let them decide. Byakuya's answer was always so simple. Unohana Retsu looked at Eisen and had no choice but to agree. All the captains agreed, even if she disagreed, it would be useless. However, from today onwards, Eisen gave Unohana a new understanding of him. Unohana Retsu didn't know how to describe it, but it was completely different from before. When she saw Eisen, she couldn't help but be on guard. That's good. Eisen sighed in relief. Just as he was about to think about the next step of his plan, a shadow that he didn't want to see came out to disgust him. I have an opinion. Dustless said calmly. The 4 simple words attracted everyone's attention. East Senpai's expression suddenly became cold, and the Zanpakuto in his hand was unsheathed. He knew that Dustless did it on purpose. You intend to question the credibility of Central Room 46? Keiki Baya opened his eyes and asked in an unfriendly manner. As a noble, he was rather stubborn. That's not it. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head and immediately said, after Balegang imprisoned Soul Society, what should he do? A grand void like Vasto Lord is not easy to deal with. We can't just send 2 or 3 captains around him all the time, can we? I thought it would be a big deal. When the time comes, I'll just develop a tool to restrict him. Mayuri shrugged and said casually. Not bad. Eisen agreed and immediately volunteered, although my strength is weak, with Captain Ye's tool, Balegan's strength will be greatly reduced. For the sake of Soul Society, I am willing to guard him. Eisen's words flattered Mayuri without leaving a trace. He also put himself on the moral high ground. He deserved the title of Best Actor. However, what happened next made Sosuke Eisen dumbfounded. Not only him, but all the captains were stunned. Bastard, what did you do to me? Come and save me. Balegan screamed when he noticed the abnormality in his body. At this moment, his body was strangely collapsing. His skeleton turned into fragments and slowly fell to the ground. Immediately, under everyone's astonished gaze, the peeled bones disappeared with the wind. His body inexplicably collapsed. He didn't receive any attack, but he turned into ashes. Don't get close to him. Old man Yamamoto's expression turned cold as he instinctively felt a sense of danger. His gaze immediately swept past the captains and finally landed on Wu-chin. This has nothing to do with me. You saw it too. He was fine just now. Wu-chin had an indifferent and aloof appearance. He immediately drew a clear line between them. Then, he said sternly, the evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. Beyligin offended too many people in his life and fought countless battles. Maybe his hidden disease suddenly broke out and killed him. Although this reason was a bit far-fetched, it happened from time to time. This is impossible. Eisen finally couldn't maintain his smile. He looked at Beyligин's body that was gradually disappearing. He almost vomited blood. Such an important chess piece died so inexplicably. How could he be calm? Eisen's face was pale. He had fought with Beyligin before and knew his physical condition. He had never heard of a great void expert dying from a hidden disease. This kind of death was too ridiculous. This is outrageous. Dustless suddenly gritted his teeth. Captain Eisen just said he would guard Beyligin, but he suddenly died. God didn't give him face. This is his own sin. Beyligin has killed too many Grim Reapers. This is the right ending. He's completely caught in his own trap. Eisen immediately forced a smile and replied. His heart was twitching. He was smart. Of course, he knew Dustless's words were a disguised sarcasm. It was useless to mock him. He was rubbing salt on his scars. Chapter 963. The head captain was expressionless. In fact, Beyligин's death was in line with his wishes. The Grim Reaper was the Grim Reaper, and the Void was the Void. There was no need to do something as trivial as imprisoning Bailey. This matter ends here. Don't discuss it in the future. The head captain's tone was firm, and there was no room for disobedience. Eisen could only grit his teeth and nod. Without Beyligin's deterrence, Hueco Mundo would soon fall into a bloodbath. Eisen glanced at Dustless and then looked away. This grudge had been settled. Dustless, who had been observing Eisen's expression the whole time, noticed it. He just smiled, it was inevitable. Anyway, he didn't care. The invasion this time is over. Raising his eyebrows, Old Man Yamamoto's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he looked at the messy Soul Society. He suddenly felt that it was a pity to let Beyligin die without beating him up. Within half a month, all the teams must resume normal operations. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. The efficiency of Soul Society was extremely high. Although it was said to take half a month, under the circumstances of full mobilization, Soul Society only needed a few days to walk out of the shadow of Hueco Mundo's attack and recover to its current state. This sudden war, if one were to talk about who benefited the most, it was none other than Dustless. He gained both fame and fortune, and his captain-level strength was also confirmed. Even Wuchen could sense that the members of the 2nd Division who usually monitored him had also disappeared. No matter what, Old Man Yamamoto reluctantly trusted Dustless. In the 4th Division's quarters. In front of the mirror, Dustless was wearing a brand new outfit. He twisted his waist in discomfort, feeling a little awkward. He was not used to wearing the Grim Reaper's Death Tyrant outfit. Clothes make the man, and gold make the Buddha. Although Wuchen felt a little restrained, he was indeed a little different from the past when he wore the Death Tyrant suit. His delicate and bright eyes were bright and full of spirit. Accompanied by the dark Death Tyrant suit, he looked funny and gave people a feeling of extra vigor. Not bad, Unohana commented after observing for a while. Just not bad. Shudora Thousandhand Maru glanced at Unohana Retsu and did not hide his dissatisfaction. I spent 10 hours to make this. TSK, hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but curl his lips. Making the Death Tyrant outfit in 10 hours was definitely a rough product without any skill. You brat, don't be so unappreciative. Even if other people ask me to act like a dead tyrant, I still have to think about it. Shidoro stomped his feet in annoyance as he glared at Dustless in annoyance. By the way, Lai, have you noticed it recently? She changed the topic of conversation and frowned. She didn't want to banter with Dustless, so she spoke cautiously. Uno Hua Lai's expression also became abnormally solemn. The Street of Drifting Souls has indeed encountered some problems recently. Many souls have disappeared. Many of the death gods in Quiet Soul Society have also mysteriously disappeared. Hearing this, Dustless remained expressionless, as if nothing had happened, but his heart was as clear as a mirror. They were probably captured by Aizen to make the Hogyoku. Thinking about the mysterious existence of the Hogyoku, Dustless's heart was burning with passion. His heart that had been sealed for so many years actually had a rare desire for it. The Hogyoku, at the very beginning, was actually used to break the boundary between Hollow and Shinigami, and to evolve a whole new dimension. Actually, the Hogyoku's true power was to develop the person's heart according to their wishes, but the condition was that the person had to have the strength to make that wish come true. In simpler words, it was a heaven-defying existence that could make anything happen. That kind of thing is not something that ordinary people like Aizen deserve. Only I can control it. With Dustless's current strength, if he fused with the Hogyoku, his strength would increase explosively, and he would break through the Shinigami's boundary. He would not be comparable to Aizen, who was in the late stage of Hogyoku. The stronger the host's mentality, the more the Hogyoku would evolve. Dustless's ideals and ambitions were far beyond Aizen's, so naturally, he would not stop at his level. Team Zero has already decided to investigate further. After a while, Shidoro Senjumaru said something shocking. The mysterious disappearance of souls was not a small matter, and it would cause imbalance. Back then, the Grim Reaper and Quincy fought because Quincy kept hunting Void. The Grim Reaper purified Void while the Grim Reaper killed Void. The Grim Reaper killed Void to purify Void while Void killed Void completely. As time passed, the two sides disagreed and a war broke out. I helped you this time as a reward for the Hogyoku in the future. Dustless smiled and explained to Unohana Retsu and Shidoro Senjumaru, the reason for the mysterious disappearance of souls is related to the invasion of Hueco Mundo. At that time, many souls were cruelly eaten by Jillian. Are you sure? Shidoro Senjumaru asked suspiciously. Again, what good would it do me to lie to you? Dustless stretched and continued, if you don't believe me, you can ask Yongin. She was also there at that time. The souls of Rughun Street and many Shinigami were either eaten or killed. Back then, many Grim Reapers had witnessed this scene with their own eyes. Dustless naturally had nothing to fear. Chapter 964. When Dustless, Kazuto, and the others arrived at the 80th district of Drifting Soul Street, they happened to see a large group of Jillian hunting souls. Many Shinigami saw this scene. They just needed to ask around a little. Shuro Senjumaru's face that was as bright as jade was filled with suspicion. His gentle gaze instantly became incomparably awe-inspiring. He stared at Wu Chen without blinking. After a long while, he saw that Wu Chen's expression was natural and didn't seem to be lying. His sharp gaze then calmed down. I hope you're not lying. Dustless said with certainty, of course I'm not lying. You guys know that the Hollow favors the souls of Shinigami. Why would they need to lie about this? That's true. Shuro Thousandhand Maru and Unohana Retsu could not deny that. The Shinigami had always been a delicacy for the Hollow. Most of the time, they would be eaten. The soul of the Shinigami was a great tonic for the Hollow. Unohana Retsu and Shuro Thousandhand Maru were quite familiar with each other. The two of them chatted happily for a while. They even ignored Dustless who was beside them. That's right. I almost forgot something important. Shuro Thousandhand Maru suddenly remembered the important matter of coming to Soul Society this time. Her strange gaze fell on Dustless again. Something. Dustless, who was drinking tea alone, noticed Shuro Thousandhand Maru's strange behavior and asked curiously. He was also a little speechless at this woman who was so flustered. It's more than just something. You can seriously injure Bailey. Soul Society will have a hard time ignoring you in the future. Shoutoro Senjumaru liked to be straightforward, so he was too lazy to talk nonsense. His eyes flashed non-stop, and after pondering for a moment, he said, "Let me introduce myself first. I am from Squad 0. I know you're called Shuro Thousand-Hand Maru. Get to the point." Dustless waved his hand. He did not expect Shuro Thousand-Hand Maru to introduce herself. He began to guess her motive. Could it be, they want to pull me into Squad 0? Following that, Shidoro's words confirmed Dustless's conjecture. Squad 0 is responsible for guarding the Spirit King Palace and ensuring the safety of the Spirit King. They will only appear when there is a great calamity in Soul Society. I came here with another order, and that is to invite you to join Squad 0. Staring straight into Dustless's eyes, Shidoro Senjumaru spoke bluntly. Pucci. Her stomach churned violently, and the tea that had poured into her lungs directly sprayed out. If it wasn't for the Shidoro Thousand-Hand Pill's agility, it might have even hit her face. What do you mean? Shidoro Thousand-Hands Maru asked as he pursed his thin lips and revealed a soul-stirring smile. The only difference was that when the beauty smiled, what blossomed was a burst of chilling laughter. Sorry, I'm not interested in joining the 0 Squad. Dustless smiled embarrassedly and immediately refused. He was used to being free. If he suddenly ran to a sealed space and lived a life worse than death, he would be looking for trouble. You just want to use my strength to protect the Spirit King. Dustless was as clear as a mirror. He clearly remembered that the former captain of the 11th Division, Kenpachi Kiyuya, was once invited by Squad 0. The reason was that he had defeated Vasto Lord like Dustless, and thus his strength was recognized by Squad 0. However, Kenpachi Kiyuya rejected Squad 0. Just like Dustless today, joining Squad 0 meant that he would completely lose his freedom. You don't want to reconsider? Shidoro Thousand-Hands Maru's dark and deep eyebrows squeezed together. His words were filled with persuasion and temptation. Squad 0's conditions are much better than Soul Society. Era. You are trying to trick my vice-captain. Senjumaru, Squad 0 is no exception to this. Uno Hanaretsu came out to disrupt the situation. Dustless was speechless. He was not a child, how could he be tricked? Compared to the boring 0 Squad, I still prefer Soul Society. Repeating himself, Dustless said with absolute certainty. His stance was incomparably firm. The existence of Squad 0 and related information is top secret. If you refuse, will you be silenced? Shidoro Thousand-Hands Maru smiled faintly, like a deadly poppy flower, brimming with murderous intent. At the same time, she released dense murderous intent and spiritual pressure that was far more terrifying than Vastolord's, indicating that she was not joking. If you can try. Facing the spiritual pressure of Mount Tai, his body felt as if there were a few mountains pressing down on him. However, Dustless's expression did not change. He even played with his fingers in boredom. He was extremely calm. You don't even know how to trick people. Dustless disagreed. The existence of Squad 0 was top secret? It was just a lie. In reality, most of the captains knew about Squad 0. Even Rukia knew about the royal family spy. In reality, even if they knew about the existence of the Spirit King Palace and Squad 0, there was nothing they could do. Spirit King Palace was not a place that could be entered as they wished. Other than being led by Squad 0, or learning from Aizen Sosuke's King's Key, there was no other way. Of course, they could learn from Yawatch. This kid is really troublesome. Shidoro Thousand-Hands Maru was having a headache. Dustless was someone who did not yield to force or persuasion. He was extremely difficult to deal with. Looking at his eyes that seemed to have everything under his control, she felt that he was even harder to deal with than Vastolord. Vastolord was also full of flaws. On the other hand, Dustless's strength was unfathomable. He was also cunning and full of tricks. Shadoro Thousand Hands Maru felt like she was being led by the nose by Dustless. However, she could not voice out her bitterness. After another half an hour, Shadoro Thousand Hands Maru left secretly. Dustless also followed Unohana Retsu to learn Shinigami's fighting style. Since he came to this world, he had to learn Shinigami's fighting style. Chapter 965. Time flew by quickly, and half a year had passed in the blink of an eye. For normal humans, half a year might be a long time, but death gods had no concept of time. Their lifespans were tens of times longer than humans, perhaps even longer. Two sharp explosions sounded from the spacious area. Looking over, the two black figures were Dustless and Unohana Retsu. At first, Dustless was very confused about spiritual pressure, but as Unohana Retsu explained it to him, he understood what it was. As long as the heart was still beating, there would be spiritual pressure overflowing. In reality, it was like chakra, but it was even simpler than chakra, as there was no need for hand seals. Path of Destruction 33, Fall of Blue Flames. After the spiritual pressure in his body gathered, the boundless explosive flames left his hand and blasted towards the figure in front of him, and the person who activated Path of Destruction 33 was Dustless. Because he was a ten-tailed beast, Dustless' stats in almost every aspect were top-notch, including the soul, which he was not good at. As such, the moment he released his spiritual pressure was no weaker than a captain's spiritual pressure, and it might even surpass it. Now that half a year had passed, Dustless was able to control his spiritual pressure with ease. Path of Destruction 54, Waste Flames. With a delicate shout, a pink disk of flames shot out. It was like a blade that emitted a blazing cold light. It effortlessly sliced apart the explosive flame that was attacking them. Not only that, it also rushed towards Dustless. Seeing this, Dustless's gaze froze, and a scorching light condensed in his palm. Crackling sounds could be heard, followed by an explosion of light that pierced through the air. Path of Destruction 63, Thunder Roar Cannon. The two contrasting lights inevitably came into close contact with each other. Immediately, an imposing and dazzling light burst out, and the temperature increased by a few times in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. The situation was almost completely one-sided. The rioting teardrops easily tore apart the shattered halos and did not slow down in the slightest. Instead, they continued to rampage towards Unohana. What a monster! Unohua sighed with mixed feelings after sensing how extraordinary Tao Breaker number 63 was. Her tone was somewhat sour, as if she was jealous of Wu Chen's boundless spiritual pressure. Even if an ordinary Tao Breaker of the lowest level was injected with a large amount of spiritual pressure, its power would still increase by a whole new dimension. This was the case for Wu Chen. Unohua Lai did not have much spiritual pressure, at least not as much as Dustless, so she focused more on the way of the sword. Clang! 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 Her slender fingers gripped the hilt of the sword. The moment she pulled out the sword, it was filled with an indescribable aura. It was a visual impact of turning something rotten into something magical. Unohua Lai's gentle gaze instantly turned cold. Puchi! The cold light was so weak that it was almost negligible. It was extremely fragile, as if it could be extinguished with a flick of a finger. However, in Unohana's hands, it immediately performed a miracle, shattering the incoming lightning and splitting it in half, allowing it to pass by her side. The first generation, Sword 8, is indeed not for show. Wu Chen's eyes lit up. He had never seen anyone who could compare with Unohua Lai's swordsmanship. Her swordsmanship had almost reached the pinnacle of perfection. Hell Butterfly. Did something big happen in Soul Society again? The black butterfly suddenly landed on his shoulder, and the surging chakra in Dustless's body also calmed down. It was not just him, Guno Hua Lai also had the same butterfly on her shoulder. Dustless took a deep breath. He knew that today's short training session would end here. His eyes lit up. Although he did not know what was going on, he could tell that something was not right. Normally, the captains would attend the meetings. However, this time, Dustless had used the Hell Butterfly to inform him. This meant that the scale of the meeting had obviously increased, which also meant that the situation was different from before. Otherwise, Head Captain Yamamoto would not have called them, the vice captains. Soul Society's captain meetings were usually held by the head captain's team, and this time was no exception. Old man Yamamoto sat calmly in his seat. The 2 rows of captains did not dare to make a sound or show any dissatisfaction. The man in front of them was the founder of Soul Society. Without him, there would be no Soul Society, no Shinigami, and no quiet Soul Society. The blue sky of Soul Society was created by him alone. It was easy to imagine how high his prestige was. This is the latest order from the Central Room 46. Head Captain Yamamoto glanced at his vice captain, Sparrow Division. The latter then took out a thick stack of documents and handed them to all the captains and vice captains. Thank you, Vice Captain of Sparrow Division. Dustless took the documents filled with words and thanked him. Glancing at the contents, Dustless sneered in his heart. An order from the Central Room 46. I think it's more like an order from Aizen Sosuke. After glancing at Aizen and his loyal dog, Dustless calmed down and began to read the documents. The content made him a little sluggish. What does this mean? Even if there's trouble in creating the Hogyoku, there's no need to make such a big fuss. Frowning, Dustless's eyes flickered. He stared at Aizen and began to think about his intentions. He instinctively smelled a conspiracy. Chapter 966. The contents of the document were rather cumbersome. The first part was mostly nonsense. The content was the same, praising the Godai 13th's loyalty to Soul Society. The real order was only a few words at the end. Capture the captains who once betrayed Soul Society and wandered the modern world. Capture them alive. Has this guy already lost his mind to this extent? Does he plan to capture them and take them back to Soul Society for experiments? This was the only reason Dustless could think of. Aizen, the smiling tiger, would definitely do something like live experiments. In addition, the creation of Hogyoku required a Shinigami's soul. The higher the level, the better. A captain-level Shinigami's soul was perfect. Ordinary Shinigami would be swallowed by Hogyoku's power and lose their sense of self. This. Is the information reliable? Didn't the previous captains all die? Jin pretended to be surprised. Dustless rolled his eyes. He was there when Aizen tried to kill the former captains. Now he was acting like he didn't know anything. How shameless. Captain Jin is right. I didn't expect Captain Hirako to still be alive. I owe him a lot. Unfortunately, he went astray. Aizen said sadly. Keep pretending. Dustless was speechless. Aizen's eyes were shining, and he looked like he was about to cry. Suddenly, he felt that he had been too incompetent when it came to scheming. He couldn't be as good as Aizen, and he almost burst into tears. No matter what, since the Central 46 sent Soul Society to capture them, we have no reason to let them go. After all, they have a lot to do with Hueco Mundo. Maybe they were the ones who ordered Bailey to invade Soul Society. Leaning on his crutch, he knocked on the ground. The captains tactfully shut their mouths. Yamamoto Genryu Mashiguko resolutely said, "We must capture them and bring them to justice." Due to Aizen's framing, Hirako Masako and the others were deemed to be closely related to Hueco Mundo and became wanted criminals of Soul Society. However, thanks to Urahara Kasuke's assistance, they were able to successfully escape from Soul Society. Those guys are strong. There are several captains and many former vice-captains. We need to be careful. Otherwise, we might fail. I don't understand. Even if they are alive, they should be very low-key. Why do we have to poke a hornet's nest? Did those guys in Central Room 46 think that we're too comfortable, so they deliberately gave us some work to do? Jingle Chenshui, who was lazy by nature, ridiculed. Regarding this kind of boring, unrewarding, and very dangerous mission, he was 100 times unwilling. However, the biggest reason was that among the so-called traitors who colluded with Hueco Mundo, there were his close friends and confidants who could barely be considered his confidant. Let nature take its course. Wu Qin was calmly cultivating his mind and temperament. He was silent. Aizen was the one who planned all of this. His goal was to capture these Shinigami who were supposed to be dead, but were still alive and could control the void form. After capturing them and bringing them back to Soul Society, they wouldn't be sentenced. Instead, they would be treated as guinea pigs by Aizen. We do need to make reasonable preparations. If they are alive, they are indeed a great enemy. Yamamoto's two white eyebrows were almost squeezed together. His tone was solemn. This mission will be led by Captain Yasushi, Captain Ikamaru, Captain Jin, Captain Shunsui, and Old Man Yamamoto looked around and finally fixed his eyes on Dustless. He remembered how Dustless had defeated the king of Hueco Mundo, Balegan, half a year ago. A strange light flashed in his turbid eyes. Vice Captain Dustless, you should go this time too. No problem. Dustless was startled at first, but then he agreed without hesitation. The Hogyoku would be his in the end anyway. Helping Aizen was the same as helping himself. The peace of Soul Society needs you young people. Dustless's straightforwardness was beyond Yamamoto's expectation. He immediately smiled. Compared to Shunsui, who only complained and didn't do anything, Dustless was more pleasing to the eye. It's strange. How did Aizen know that they are still alive and in the modern world? It doesn't make sense. Dustless's heart was filled with doubts. Back then, Urahara Kasuke had secretly rescued Hirako Masako and the others and escaped to the modern world. Other than Dustless, who was an invader who had transmigrated, perhaps no one else knew about it. For decades, the Masked Legion had been hiding quietly. But now, Aizen suddenly ordered the Godai 13 to exterminate the Masked Legion. The source of this information had to be questioned. Forget it, let's take one step at a time. Dustless couldn't find any clues after thinking for a long time. There were too many unsolved mysteries in the world. There was no need to dwell on it. It's not like I didn't get anything this time. That unlucky bastard Yenching is also in this mission. I'll find a chance to kill him and become the captain of the 11th Division, Wu Qin planned in his heart. He looked at Yen Ghost Yenching and happened to see Yen Ghost Yenching gnashing his teeth. He looked like he was going to swallow Wu Qin alive. Chen-kun, be careful in this mission. The enemy is strong, but you have to be careful of your own people. Uno Hua moved closer to Wu Qin. Her delicate red lips exuded a fragrance, reminding Wu Qin to be wary of her own people. Thank you, Captain Unohana. I will be careful. Dustless smiled and thanked her sincerely. Even though Unohana Retsu's worries were unnecessary, Dustless still accepted them all. After all, the only person in Soul Society who cared about Dustless was Unohana Retsu. Chapter 967. Unohana Retsu didn't even need to think about the person she was talking about. The only person who fit the criteria was the captain of the 11th Division, Kenpachi Ghost Yenching. The hatred between Dustless and him was the type that couldn't be resolved. Kenpachi Ghost Yenching is a narrow-minded man. He won't let you go if he finds an opportunity. What Uno Hua Lai said was not false. She had a keen eye for people. With just a single glance, she could tell what kind of person they were. Kenpachi Ghost Yenching wasn't a kind person. He had a ferocious appearance and a cunning heart. There's no such thing as an absolute hunter and prey. This kind of situation is always changing. If you don't pay attention, you'll become someone else's meal. Dustless said casually. I hope so. Uno Hanaretsu looked deeply at Dustless and didn't say anything else. She was smart enough to understand what Dustless meant. If he encountered Kenpachi Ghost Yenching, Dustless wouldn't show any mercy. Okay, today's meeting is over. What else does anyone have to say? Yamamoto said tiredly. He was over 2,000 years old, so his stamina was far from these young sprouts. Captain Aizen is very strong. His Sanpakudo Suigetsu can confuse the enemy. With Captain Aizen's participation, this mission will be a success. Dustless stood up and said. He didn't hesitate to drag Aizen down with him. He might be plotting something in Soul Society. Sosuke Aizen's heart trembled when he heard this. Of course, he had other things to do. He looked gloomily at Dustless, trying to maintain a smile. He quickly explained, Captain Aizen can indeed participate in this mission. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it later. Or leave it for your vice-captain. You'll head to the modern world in one day. The captain slammed the table and decided. He didn't give Aizen a chance to argue. Today's meeting is over. We'll talk about other things after the mission is over. Dustless's words sealed Aizen's path of retreat. Aizen's plan was ruined by Dustless's sudden interruption. Originally, he planned to use this short period of time to head to Hueco Mundo. After Balagan's death, he needed a new king of Hueco Mundo to maintain Hueco Mundo's rule. Now that Dustless had jumped out to mess things up, they had no choice but to rush to the modern world to face the Masked Legion. This damned brat, I'll find a chance to teach him a lesson. Although Aizen still had the same gentle smile on his face, the fire in his heart was off the charts. Ever since Dustless appeared, everything went well for him. Especially Dustless. Whenever Aizen thought that his plan was a success, he would, coincidentally, jump out and play the role of a troublemaker. Unknowingly, he was beaten by Dustless. Whether it was intentional or not, Aizen had already sentenced Dustless to death. The only pity was that he didn't have the right opportunity to do it. A day passed in the blink of an eye. The captains who had been waiting for a long time also came to the modern world through the portal. The modern world's Kangzucho was charming. It was completely different from the ancient Soul Society. The city had a different kind of charm. Urahara Kasuk's house. When the captains left the modern world, he received the exact news. You didn't call us here for a party, did you? I can't believe you're so generous. In a fragrant room, there were all kinds of food. The members of the Masked Legion gathered here and looked at the dazzling array of food. Their leader, Hirako Masako, was already drooling. Era. I'm not the stingy merchant you said I was. I'm just shy of money. Urahara Kasuk, who was dressed strangely, took out a fan to cover his face, only revealing a pair of smiling eyes. And this may be our last meal. Of course, we have to take out all our savings. As soon as these words fell, the originally joyous atmosphere became incomparably awkward and heavy. What do you mean? Did Soul Society find our traces? Hirako Masako retracted his chopsticks and looked at Urahara Kasuk with a puzzled expression. This middle-aged man with a wretched smile was definitely not as casual and cynical as he looked. In fact, he was meticulous and did things flawlessly. There is accurate news that the captains of Soul Society have all been dispatched. Although the purpose is not clear for the time being, it seems that other than us fugitives, no one can make Soul Society mobilize so many people. Urahara Kasuke's smiling eyes were filled with seriousness as he said bluntly. How did Soul Society find our traces? Over the years, we've been very low-key and rarely show up. Hirako Masako and others asked in unison, showing deep confusion. I don't know the specific situation. I only know that this was an order from Central Room 46. I'm afraid it was instigated by Aizen. Although it was just a guess, Urahara Kasuke was very sure. I believe you don't want to be caught, nor do you want to return to Soul Society. So, we can only fight with our backs against the river. Although Soul Society is aggressive, it's not like we have no chance of winning. At the same time, several extremely powerful spiritual pressures suddenly appeared, and the momentum swept across Kangzucho, looking for the Masked Legion. A battle of life and death was about to begin. Chapter 968. In Urahara Kasuke's shop, the faces of the Masked Legion gathered here were ugly. This huge Ryatsu couldn't be a lie, it was obviously captain level. They even recognized the Ryatsu of some people. Bang! Terashinko's face trembled, he smashed the table in front of him with his fist, his intestines were green with regret. He was the one who noticed Aizen's danger and purposely pulled him into the 5th Division as a vice-captain. His original intention was to secretly monitor Aizen Sosuke, but in the end, he was tricked by Aizen. So in today's situation, it was as difficult as ascending to the sky to remedy it. That damn Aizen. The hot-tempered Nishiori was the first to lose her temper. She carried her serrated broadsword and rushed out of the door, shouting in exasperation, it must be Aizen's doing. That bastard took an inch and wanted a mile. I'm going to chop him up and make sure he can't be a man for the rest of his life. Stop her. Terashinko was shocked when he saw this. He knew Nishiori's temperament, she wasn't the kind of person who would act without thinking. He immediately reached out to grab her, but she easily dodged. Bang! Terashinko, who lost his support, fell to the ground, his face intimately touching the ground. His nose was red and swollen with some traces of blood. Damn it, it hurts. This group of people, Urahara Kasuke's face turned black, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This group of people gave him a deeper understanding of their unreliability. At the same time, he began to think about how to deal with Soul Society. A little carelessness this time may lead to eternal damnation. The sky was clear, and there were several figures standing in the sky. It was particularly eye-catching. Ah! Lord Yamamoto, Kozuke is so big, and they deliberately hide their Ryatsu. Where are we going to find them? Shunsui complained, like a young wife who was angry but didn't dare to speak, full of resentment. It was quite funny. Wuchen watched quietly and kept silent like a stone. He wasn't familiar with these captains and didn't have any interaction with them. There was no need for him to curry favor with them and bring disgrace upon himself. Am I seeing things? He actually came out of his own accord. After a few minutes of silence, a surprised exclamation attracted the attention of all the captains. Then, the mysterious voice continued as if it was talking to itself. Everyone's spiritual pressure content and density are extremely shocking. It seems that there is even great void realm spiritual pressure mixed in. Upon hearing this, all the captains turned their heads and looked towards the source. Everyone's gazes were not focused on those mysterious black dots that were swiftly rushing over. It was dustless. This guy actually discovered it before we did. All the captains exchanged glances, and they could all see the astonishment and shock in each other's eyes. He was just a mere vice-captain, yet his perception was so terrifying. It would have been fine if they had been careless just now, but the key point was that all of them had been focused, and Dustless had discovered the enemy's tracks before them. How could they not be shocked? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom boom boom. A sharp roar resounded in the sky within a radius of 10 miles. The sky instantly turned red, as demonic as blood, permeating with a deadly pressure. Everyone could smell the scent of death. Looking up, several spheres that could be called Vastolord's void flashes were heading towards them. This is Void Flash. Everyone, retreat. Sensing the extraordinary flashes, Shuinsue's eyelids twitched, and he immediately ordered loudly. He also quickly used Flash Step to escape. There were about 10 void flashes, and their strength was at least equivalent to a Jutsu's level voids. No one could treat it as a joke. However, there were exceptions to everything. Today, they had completely witnessed what was called a miracle. Retreat quickly. After retreating 10 miles, the spiritual pressure under Shuinsue's feet finally stopped. Suddenly realizing that there was one person missing, he quickly glanced over and was surprised to see Dustless in a daze, as if he had just fallen asleep, standing in the same place with a hazy face. Get out of there quickly. The power of dozens of void flashes is enough to blast Kangzucho. Although Shunsui reminded him immediately, what should have happened could not be avoided. Boom boom boom. The power of dozens of void flashes was beyond the captain's imagination. The Kangzucho below was instantly blasted flat, and an unprecedented crater appeared. Even the captains who parachuted in the modern world, although they had already evacuated the central area, were still affected by the airwaves. It was as if they were slapped in the face, and their faces hurt. If Soul Society's Nirvana cocoon had not already done something to Kangzucho, the entire Kangzucho would have disappeared from the map with just this. Serves him right. A little vice-captain dares to come out and show off. Is there no one left in Soul Society? They actually sent such a pitiful and unlucky guy. Witnessing such an exaggerated attack, Rishiki laughed in high spirits. Ever since she was ruthlessly framed by Soul Society, her feelings for Soul Society had also disappeared. Next should be, the pitiful and unlucky guy you mentioned. It can't be me, right? Beside Rishiki, a gorgeous flash suddenly appeared. It was not as dazzling as the sun, but was very gentle and peaceful, making people involuntarily relax their vigilance. Then, a delicate and unscathed face condensed again. Sorry, the unlucky vice-captain you said should have died has revived again. Seeing this, Rishiki's eyes widened and her expression was blank. Unscathed? I clearly hit you. Yes, I must be dreaming. Rishiki muttered to herself absent-mindedly. She raised her hand with a dull expression, as if she wanted to give herself a slap to wake herself up from her dream. Chapter 969. Dustless couldn't help but laugh. This little blonde loli with a face full of freckles had a unique charm, especially when she raised her delicate hand to slap him. Dustless's face was full of mischief as he looked at Rishiri expectantly. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared in the distant sky, and a straight beam of light blasted towards him. Hato number 63, Thunder Roar Cannon. The flash of light was like a golden spear, and its sharp tip was enough to penetrate any material. Even if the captain-level Grim Reaper didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. This kind of boring, useless, and exhausting attack should be used less in the future. Looking over, his dark pupils landed on the masked blonde man with yellow hair and a strange smile on his face. He had a sloppy look. He wore a white bone mask on half of his face, similar to Great Void, and there was residual void spiritual pressure all over his body. His murderous aura was also cold and ruthless, no different from Void. Bang! The golden spear easily penetrated Dustless, who didn't dodge, and destroyed him. However, there wasn't the expected separation of his body, nor the miserable appearance of his body being burnt. Dustless, who was attacked, just turned into thousands of photons, swaying lazily in the air. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, his body reformed again. This guy, what kind of monster is he? When did such a character appear in Soul Society? Teira Masako's face stiffened and was replaced by shock. His heart trembled fiercely as he looked at Dustless, who was completely unscathed after being pierced by Tao Breaker 63. His impassioned heart of wanting to take revenge on Soul Society fell to the bottom of the valley. A far-fetched idea popped up in his mind. Could it be that this guy can ignore physical attacks? Don't worry about him, Rishiri, leave quickly. Sensing the danger from Dustless's cold eyes, Teira Masako's heart turned cold. He quickly shouted at Rishiri, who was still in a daze, "What are you daydreaming about? Quickly retreat." "Want to run? That's fine, but leave something behind first, at least let me collect some interest." Dustless sneered. Immediately, a demonic low voice resounded through the sky. In mid-air, a visible ripple surged and locked on all the members of the masked army. Dustless would not choose to remain silent after being attacked by one or two waves of people. His face was aloof and cold. There was no emotion in his indifferent eyes. People of different paths couldn't make plans together. Wuchen wouldn't choose to say much to this group of masked men. The two sides originally belonged to two different worlds. The spiritual pressure in his body surged, like an erupting stormy sea. It was uncontrollable. A thick flash condensed in his palm. The final target was the members of the Masquerade Society. Tao Breaker 88, Flying Dragon strikes the thief. A huge beam of light, of the world of the world of the world of the world. It was as if it could destroy the whole world. The space trembled slightly and was even distorted horribly. The high-density light beam was as fast as lightning. In the unseen world, one could hear a loud dragon's roar, revealing a kind of heart-palpitating energy wave. Everyone could smell the scent of death. This guy, he must have done it on purpose. This bastard must be a captain. He deliberately took off the captain's haori to bait me. Indignant and unhappy voices rang out from the crowd of the maskers. Like a willful child, they fixed their eyes on the past. It was the same in the past. Leave it to me. Looking at the incoming beam of light, the former vice-captain of the Path of Keto, Akita Bo Xian, said. At this moment, his face was full of confidence, and his eyes were shining. Heaven's pride, iron wall, dragon's roar, lion's roar, tiger's roar, wolf's run, cut off heaven and earth before it collapses. The sonorous and powerful ancient incantation came out of Akita Bo Xian's mouth. These obscure and incomprehensible words gave birth to a different kind of miracle. Bakudo's 81, Sky Breaker. A transparent wall covered the sky, and a group of people from the masked legion hid behind it. Don't worry, the normal 81st Bakudo can block the 89th Hado, and the Sky Slasher that I've chanted with all my might can block the 90th Hado, the Black Coffin. Shota Bo Xian laughed proudly and confidently. Boom boom boom, the beam of light came, and the attack was unprecedentedly powerful. Whether this wall, which was as thin as a cicada's wing, could block it was quite mysterious. Boom boom boom, the thick beam of light crashed into the transparent defensive wall, and there was a violent tremor. Immediately, the beam of light rushed forward like crazy, and hit the defensive wall with all its strength. Because of the intensity, there were dazzling sparks. However, from the beginning to the end, the transparent wall could not be shaken. If you want to break my defense, the 88 Hado's power is far from enough. It needs to be at least 90. Akita Bo Xian smiled. It's indeed not bad. Dustless nodded undeniably. The members of the Keto were indeed first class in the Keto. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth lifted into a dark sneer. However, as you said, the normal sky breaker can block the flying dragon strikes the thief sky-shaking thunder cannon. However, that's only for ordinary people. Sorry, I'm not in this category. Caw caw caw. As Dustless's contemptuous and arrogant voice fell, the crystal-clear transparent wall showed a crack the size of a finger, and it finally couldn't withstand the powerful force and burst. It was torn apart by the terrifying spiritual pressure and turned into flying snow fragments. Akita Bo Xian's pride was also torn to pieces by Dustless. The scene changed rapidly, and all the masked army were stunned. Looking at the thick beam of light devouring them, they didn't even have the chance to dodge in such a short distance. When everyone was in despair, a figure swept across and faced the invincible light without fear. Chapter 970. Under the shroud of light, the members of the Masked Legion were as small as a chestnut in the ocean. However, the figure that appeared out of thin air was calm. The hurricane that erupted from the 88th Hado blew his clothes, but he didn't back down at all. Regardless of whether this indifference was a forced act or if he had a card up his sleeve, no one could ignore his existence. Era, it's really a fierce Kido, but Ryatsu and moves have been interpreted. Urahara Kasuke's sloppy voice spread, and then he pulled out the Zanpakuto hidden in his crutch, and casually drew a circle in the void in front of him, and then a crimson shield emerged from the water, resolutely blocking the sky. Boom boom boom. This kind of casual and seemingly unreliable trick was surprisingly strange and tenacious. Moreover, it was very effective. Dustless's devastating attack was easily defended by Urahara Kasuke. I was almost killed. Be careful later, don't forget that it's the captains of Soul Society. Urahara Kasuke breathed a sigh of relief, then turned and solemnly reminded, also, that vice-captain is not an ordinary person, his strength is comparable to the captain's, or even beyond the captain's, don't be confused by his vice-captain's coat. Urahara Kasuke, do you have time to worry about others? A cold and indifferent voice full of killing intent resounded behind everyone. A handsome, tall man with a gentle smile on his mouth flashed out of thin air, and of course, his attack was not inferior to Mount Tai. Hado 91,000 hands bright sky cannon. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Endless silver light poured down, and the entire sky was particularly dazzling. The light that almost filled the entire sky connected together and turned into a vast energy tide that spread out. Aizen Sosuke. A group of members of the Masked Legion, seeing the culprit who tortured them for hundreds of years appear, all of them glared at him, and their killing intent raged like a hurricane. Void Flash. Seeing their enemy appear, the members of the Masked Legion mustered all their strength and used their strongest moves to fight back against the energy tide that filled the sky. Several void flashes stood out. Their density and power were frightening. Wherever the red light flew, the sky where it landed would vaguely distort and evaporate. Even though number 91's Tao Breaker was powerful enough to destroy 2 void flashes, it was still no match for the other void flashes. The silver tide of energy was destroyed by the void flashes, and the void flashes rose from the ground and locked onto Sosuke Aizen. Boom boom boom. An unprecedented tremor swept through the area. The center where Aizen Sosuke was standing was directly torn apart by the violent energy waves. At the place where he stood, the void had been completely shattered. The horizon was pitch black with a terrifying gravitational force. Above him was an endless dark domain that connected to the universe and the galaxy. Are you serious? Captain Aizen's spiritual pressure disappeared. If Captain Aizen was hit by so many void flashes, his chances of surviving are 0. Noticing that Aizen's spiritual pressure suddenly disappeared, Dustless's first thought was that Aizen was dead, but then he looked at the old man Ikamaru Jin and confirmed that Aizen wasn't dead. He hid his spiritual pressure and deliberately hid in a corner, overlooking the battlefield like a poisonous snake. If Hirako and the others showed any flaws, he would definitely jump out and kill them. Aizen's spiritual pressure really disappeared. This time, he's dead for sure. Masako Hirako took a deep breath as his eyes shone brightly. The great worry that had been plaguing his mind for many years might have been eliminated. He was in a particularly good mood, as if he was strolling through the clouds. Pfft! A sharp pain suddenly spread from his waist to his whole body. Hirako's face instantly turned pale. He turned his head and saw a nightmare figure. That cold face was different from before, it was filled with a sense of isolation, Sosuke Aizen. It's really sad, Captain Hirako, Aizen smiled faintly as he whispered in Hirako's ear. You want to be my enemy with this level? You're too naive. You're just like a child who hasn't grown up yet. The target they hit just now was just an illusion caused by Kyoka Suigetsu. In reality, Sosuke Aizen wasn't injured at all. Hirako. The members of the Masked Legion were shocked when they saw this, and they glared at Aizen. Among them, Rishi was the most furious, and she immediately released her Zanpakuto. Cut him down, Orochi. After using Shurkai, the Zanpakuto turned into a large Zanpakuto. It looked like a ferocious beast with a bloody mouth as it swept towards Sosuke Aizen's face. Shoot him, Shinigami. A huge cold light came from the side. The front of the light was so dazzling that no one dared to look at it directly. It was extremely fast, and when they opened their eyes wide, they saw a Zanpakuto coming towards them. Boom! Just as he was about to rip Ri's stomach open and devour her whole body, Rokush Kencher Nishi, who was behind him, kicked Ri's away in the nick of time to save her life. The ground in the distance was directly torn into a canyon by the Shinigami. Don't be careless, follow the battle plan I just said, split up, scatter the captains. Urahara Kasuke ordered in the face of such an embarrassing situation. The members of the Masked Legion nodded and flew towards each other. Are you my captain? After a while, looking at the figure flying in front of him, Dustless was quite surprised. Chapter 971. Wu Chen's opponent was a pretty girl. She had braided hair and was wearing a sailor suit. She was wearing a pair of unique colored glasses. She had the appearance of a cute female student. She was the former vice captain of the 8th Division, Lisa Sasamaru. How strange. You don't think I'm a pushover, do you? Wu Chen was not in a hurry to make a move. He stared at the miniskirt and the beautiful legs that were exposed outside. His pair of ordinary eyes were exceptionally cold. The deadly momentum also became peaceful and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Bring it on. Lisa Sasamaru, who pulled out her Zanpakuto, was on alert. Of course, she didn't think that Dustless let her go because of his conscience. This was just the last preparation before the storm. Her brain cells spun rapidly, 10 times faster than usual, thinking about Dustless's next attack. Due to the excessive use of her brain, Lisa Yasadamaru's beautiful hair fell a little. Dustless's next sentence directly killed all the cells in Lisa Sasamaru's brain. She was so angry that she was on the verge of collapse. She pointed her finger at Dustless in disbelief. She was furious. White skin, beautiful face, slim waist, curvy breasts, long legs. How enviable. After observing for a while, Dustless's eyes were shining with the light of an expert. He gave a thumbs up to Lisa Sasamaru and then praised sincerely, a perfect woman like you should be admired by everyone, but you read porn all day. How sinful. You've been thinking about this all day. Lisa Sasamaru's mouth twitched when she remembered Dustless's serious and focused expression, and her voice was trembling. I got the latest news from Kasuke Urahara. I heard that you defeated the king of Hueco Mundo, Baligan. Lisa Sasamaru's tone was light and full of doubt, and the way she looked at Dustless was the same. I was praising you. It's called art, not perverted. My professional foresight is far from what ordinary people can compare to. Dustless answered honestly. He opened his mouth and was about to speak when a wave of fierce attacks and angry curses followed. A scumbag like you can actually defeat Balegan. What a joke. It seems that the rumor is true. It was indeed Balegan's hidden illness that caused his body to collapse on its own. Lisa's voice was full of fire. Her first impression of Dustless was that he was rather sunny, with a warm smile on his face. However, after hearing Dustless's words, her impression of him collapsed instantly. The dense and unique spiritual pressure all over his body began to erupt. Void flash. The huge energy ball flew toward him, leaving behind an unerasable afterimage in its wake. This kind of pure physical attack won't work on me. How many times have I repeated this sentence? Dustless muttered to himself in a low voice. Just like before, his whole body was still motionless, like a towering tree rooted to the ground. He neither ran nor dodged, allowing the void flash to hit him. Boom! Boom! The violent explosion spread into the endless sky, and the rapid impact spread out. The matter affected by the void flash turned into ashes, leaving only a huge ball of fire burning with black smoke in the sky. Did it work? Lisa Sasamaru's face was full of hope, and her eyes stared at the depths of the fire. Her deep eyes were unusually bright, and the scene inside could be seen at a glance. Everything changed under her eyes. Success, are you dreaming? In the flames of life's prohibition, an untimely voice suddenly came. Immediately, the dazzling light condensed and vaguely turned into a human silhouette, and then walked out of the smoke. Dustless was still intact, without the slightest injury. His bright eyes always maintained indifference and calmness. It seemed that no trick in this world could hurt him. Lisa Sasamaru felt frustrated. It's impossible for half-baked people like you to defeat me. Dustless said calmly with his hands crossed. His tone had a kind of pity. In this world without hockey, it's almost impossible to touch his body. It's useful to all creatures on this planet. Any attack is useless. Don't be so sure. Lisa Sasamaru said coldly. Still want to resist? I advise you not to struggle in vain. Dustless slightly raised his eyebrows, listening to her words. It was obvious that she still wanted to resist to the end. Just as he was about to make a move, the small object in Lisa Sasamaru's hand suddenly attracted Dustless's attention. What is that? Urahara Kasuke invented it. Lisa Sasamaru's hand was holding a dark square box, which looked quite mysterious. Goodbye. With a smug smile on her face, Lisa Sasamaru glanced at Dustless, and then the dark box in her hand suddenly shone brightly, and a black hole appeared behind her. Thanks to Manager Urahara. Then, he took a big stride forward and entered the cave. What the hell is going on? Dustless didn't expect this girl who likes to read pornographic novels to suddenly run away. His face was full of confusion, and his eyes subconsciously looked around, not only Lisa Sasamaru, but also the rest of the masked corps, and they all disappeared strangely. Want to run? No way. His pupils rapidly turned into scarlet Sharingan, and his eyes stared at the black hole that hasn't closed yet, and a powerful eye power gushed out. Kamui. It should be safe now. In the dark space, Lisa Sasamaru breathed heavily, but at this moment, a bright light shone in from behind her, and a teasing sentence. Follow me to Soul Society. It's safe there. Chapter 972. The mocking voice from behind made Lisa's nerves tense up. She turned around with a mechanical expression, only to see the black space that was supposed to be closed was torn apart by some kind of mysterious energy wave with absolute power. It was as worthless as a piece of paper. "Young lady, those who are targeted by me can only admit defeat." The clear voice was very loud and clear, revealing an invisible and mysterious energy that could steal one's soul. It quickly devoured Lisa's rationality, and her originally clear and confused eyes suddenly became incomparably hesitant. In the dark and sealed world, there was only dead silence. Lisa Sasamara was the only one there, and the strange world around her was giving her the cold shoulder. There was no vitality, and she was the only one in this world. "What is this place?" Lisa muttered to herself, her voice was filled with uncertainty about the future. At the same time, an unprecedented exhaustion swept through her body, numbing her nervous system. Just when she was about to fall asleep, a few figures suddenly appeared in her mind. Her old friends, the members of the masked army, one by one, appeared in her mind. For a moment, she was full of energy, looking at the strange and cold dark space. After careful analysis, her eyes shone with wisdom. Poochie. Lisa's white and tender arm splattered blood everywhere. Her face was as white as paper. Using self-harm to awaken her inner rationality, the drowsiness in her mind instantly disappeared. At the same time, the strange dark space in front of her also disappeared with the wind. "Where is that guy?" Lisa, who regained her consciousness, looked left and right, bitterly searching for traces of Dushless, but strangely there was no trace of him, as if he had disappeared from the world without a trace. This is really surprising. You can actually get rid of the illusion, worthy of praise. But, what awaits you is not the dawn of victory, but more ruthless, despair. The ghostly voice sounded in Lisa's ears. She felt a pair of cold eyes staring at her, and her soul trembled. Because it was an illusion, she was not injured. Shio shio shio. Without even thinking, she decisively turned into a gust of wind and disappeared, heading straight for the end point behind her. The pressure that Dustless brought to Lisa's Shibatara was too great, exceeding all the enemies she had ever known. It was like a giant bullying a weak baby. This was cheating. Damn it, when did such a monster appear in Soul Society? Lisa cursed in her heart. At the same time, she increased her speed and rushed toward the exit in front of her. Only by reaching there could she barely survive. Dustless stopped and looked at the area where Lisa was rushing at full speed. His eyes flashed with surprise. Hueco Mundo, what is she doing there? Could it be that the Great Voids intend to help this group of masks? Driven by curiosity, Dustless's feet were like a gust of wind, following closely behind Hueco's circle and Lisa Itsumuru. Hueco Mundo, as the name suggested, was the headquarters of Hueco Mundo. It was also a barren land. Ever since the king of Hueco Mundo, Balegan, died tragically in Soul Society, the ownerless Hueco Mundo had fallen into a reign of terror. In order to fight for the position of king of Hueco Mundo, the Great Voids had cruel battles every day. In the sky above Hueco Mundo, the sky suddenly distorted, and a long and narrow black crack was drawn. Then, a beautiful figure rushed out from it in a sorry state. Then, the black crack closed, and it was as good as new. Lisa Yukimaro looked down at Hueco Mundo with a relaxed expression. She finally had the confidence to deal with Dushless. Caw. In just the blink of an eye, the closed void began to distort rapidly, and then burst open with a bang. Dustless walked out from it. Unlike Lisa Yukimaru, Dustless, who just came out, was treated cruelly. Several flashes of different colors greeted him mercilessly. Is this how Hueco Mundo treats its guests? Could it be that this group of cold Great Voids are also lecherous, hitting men to please women? Dustless's face darkened. Lisa Yukimaru acted as if nothing had happened. She completely ignored the existence of the flashes and locked on to herself. Boom boom boom. The huge flashes exploded, and the whole sky trembled, stirring up ripples. Dustless's body was also split into 4 or 5, turning into photons that filled the sky. But even so, in the end, he was restored as usual, and it could not shake him at all. No wonder it attracted me to Hueco Mundo. I'm afraid it was already prepared. Looking down, it was obvious that something was wrong with the great voids below. They all roared at Dustless, but Lisa Yukimura was ignored by the murderous great voids as if she did not exist. But what's the use of this? Dustless shook his head. There were too many great voids on the ground, as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges. But, no matter how many there were, it was useless. Dustless could not do it with numbers. Take your time to deal with them. After saying that, Lisa Yukimura took out the mysterious black box again. It flashed with a strange light, and the space beside her split open again, and she stepped into it. Dustless was about to chase after her, but the blind great voids swarmed over. The number of them was so great that it made people hallucinate, as if the whole world was their enemy. There were too many voids. Although they were all low-level voids and had not even reached the level of Jillian, there were thousands of them. He mobilized high-density chakra in his body, and his eyes changed, as if he wanted to destroy all the creatures in Hueco Mundo. He was filled with murderous intent. Super Shinra Tensei. A super strong impact visible to the naked eye spread over an area of 10 kilometers in an instant. All the voids died in an instant, and they could not even do the most basic thing of stalling for time. A meteorite crater appeared on the ground out of nowhere. However, at this moment, an unexpected figure blocked in front of him. Dustless immediately determined that it was an enemy, and a very strong one at that. Chapter 973. But at this time, an unexpected figure appeared in front of him. Dustless immediately knew that it was an enemy, and a very strong one at that. The person who came was very muscular, with eyebrow rings and earrings, white hair, short hair at the temples and back, and long bangs in the front. Just by looking at him, one could tell that he was a fierce man who was easily angered. The former captain of the 9th Division, Rokush Kenshir. Shinigami, you almost killed my companions just now. So, I'm going to tear you apart alive to avenge them. Rokush Kenshir pointed his thick finger at Dustless and swore. Looking at this guy with pity, in the eyes of Dustless, it was just a boring declaration of death. Turn into ashes, wind of the broken earth. A gust of wind hit Dustless from the front. The range was extremely wide, sharper than the blade of a sword, and the surrounding sky was also filled with this kind of sharp wind blade. Wind attribute Zanpakuto. Dustless's injured body was healed, and he was curious. Rokush Kenshi's Zanpakuto was covered in white light, and it was extremely fierce. The wind that could easily cut through steel came from the body of the Zanpakuto. With a chuckle, Dustless hooked his finger at him and said, "Bring it on." Arrogant. Hearing this, Rokush Kenshi's face was cold, and his body swept up a storm, and it was no different from Dustless's speed, and it was impossible to see his movement speed. Pucci. When he realized, Dustless's body was separated from his body, and the white Zanpakuto pierced through his body, and Dustless was brutally cut in half by Rokush Kenshir. This is just the beginning. Rokush Kenshir glanced at the two halves of the body ruthlessly, and then his Zanpakuto shook, and Dustless's body changed dramatically again. Rokush Kenshir also stepped back 100 meters, and then he thought of the danger of his Zanpakuto, and then he stepped back a few hundred meters before he felt relieved. Pucci. Pucci. The incorporeal blades of wind suddenly spread out from Dustless's body and attacked the surrounding space uncontrollably, leaving thick marks on the ground. The host was unable to control it. No matter if it was an enemy or an ally, anyone who got close to the host would suffer the destruction of the wind blades. Rokush Kenshir himself was no exception. On the other hand, Dustless himself was in an even more miserable state. He was sliced into countless pieces in a short period of time. But even so, he was still the same as before, and not a single drop of blood flowed out from him. This should work. Rakechi Fist Nishi heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to launch another intensive attack, a sudden voice immediately shattered his high fighting spirit. Frankly speaking, any move is useful to me, but it's impossible to hit my body. However, your ability is very interesting. Everything that is hit by it will explode. Dustless's body, which had been broken into countless pieces, reassembled. He said calmly, "Perhaps there is someone in this world who can hurt me, but one thing is for sure. At least this person is not you." A high-density flash condensed at the tip of his foot, and after locking onto Roki Boxer Nishi, he kicked out. Light speed kick. Roki Boxer Nishi was shocked when he saw this. Sensing the terrifying speed of the light attack, he immediately reacted rationally and used his unique void form ability without hesitation. Of course, for the sake of safety, in addition to void form, he also used his best move. Bankai, Iron Fist Wind Break. Roki Boxer Nishi's Ryatsu increased several times in a short few seconds. After using his Bankai, his fighting posture also changed dramatically. He held a sword with teeth in each hand, and his arms were wrapped by caterpillar tracks. The caterpillar tracks on both arms were connected to his back, and there was also armor on his back. His Bankai was able to pour the explosive power into his fists, and the explosive power would endlessly pour into his opponent when his fists hit. All in all, it was a very powerful Bankai. Ka ka ka, Roki Boxer Nishi stomped his feet on the ground, and suddenly the ground collapsed. He gathered a powerful force in his hands, and then calmly looked at the light that was swooping down. With a disdainful face, he punched out. Bang! The light was effectively restrained, and it couldn't penetrate Roki Boxer Nishi's fist. It could only graze his fist, and the effect was minimal. After a few seconds, the light became weaker. Whoosh! Roki Boxer Nishi's tiger eyes revealed a hint of dominance, and the light that was in a stalemate immediately collapsed. Then, the Ryatsu that erupted from his body was no weaker than Vastolord's. Roki Boxer Nishi locked his eyes on Dustless, and when he was about to use his full strength to attack, something strange happened again. A black shadow rushed over, and its front end was surrounded by a cold light. It was so focused on observing Dustless's Roki Boxer Nishi that it didn't notice this subtle change. Idiot, behind you. Seeing that Roki Boxer Nishi didn't know what was going on and was just looking at him, Dustless couldn't help but complain, "How did someone like you become the captain?" Roki Boxer Nishi was stunned when he heard this. He suddenly felt that he was locked by a mysterious killing intent. Pucci. Even with the armor on his back, the invincible cold light easily shattered it, and penetrated deep into Roki Boxer Nishi's internal organs, devouring his life force like a whale. In just a few seconds, this former captain's life was ended. I thought it was just a simple mission, but it seems that the situation is getting more and more complicated. Dustless squinted his eyes, and there was a strange light in his eyes. He carefully looked at the person who gave Roki Boxer Nishi a fatal blow. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Then, his eyes became cold, and he sneered, "But this is also good. Since you are here to die, it saves me the trouble of looking for you." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.